It is Friday, July 28th, 2026, coming to you from America's beautiful North Coast, from the shores of Lake Superior. This is The American Dissent. I'm your host, Sam Martin.
And I'm Jen Schultz.
On today's show, over the weekend, President Trump hosted Take Two of the White House Correspondents' Dinner after a gunman cut the first attempt short. Unsurprisingly, the president made a complete ass of himself. What the event showed is that the White House Correspondents Association is entirely about access and reporters palling around with the people they cover. The whole enterprise just appears to be an embarrassment. The U.S. has, after 2 straight weeks of non-stop strikes on Iran, it stopped and has now strung together several days of no strikes. The reason? The U.S. is running dangerously low on important munitions, especially interception missiles. Rationing these interceptors is now suggested as the reason Iranian weapons were able to kill American service members on bases in Jordan. As Washington holds events for Lindsey Graham's memorial today, this weekend, raw footage of the senator seen celebrating the Iran war and collaborating with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was released. Dark stuff. Yet another Doge revelation has come to light. Important grants that states like Minnesota use to manage forests to prevent and contain forest fires were cut, in addition to many other things. These cuts are now being blamed for the current disastrous forest fires that have ravaged through the part of northern Minnesota known as the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness. Major primaries take place next week. The hotly contested and watched Michigan Senate primary between Dr. Abdul El-Sayed and Congresswoman Haley Stevens will finally come to an end. Another important race to watch in Michigan is the 7th Congressional District, which is seen as a likely pickup opportunity for the Dems. William Lawrence is running as the leftist insurgent and is backed by Bernie Sanders. His primary message is on opposing AI data centers. He faces off against 2 more traditional Democrats, Bridget Brink and Matt Mastum, who very well may split the moderate vote, allowing Lawrence to claim victory. Missouri also has its primary day next week, before the Kentucky primary campaign, where AIPAC spent a record amount of money in a congressional primary to defeat Thomas Massie on the GOP ticket. The previous record was spent in a primary by AIPAC, also is against a pair of Democratic races 2 years ago, Jamal Bowman in New York City and against Cori Bush in St. Louis, Missouri. Both expenditures were successful for AIPAC. This year, Cori Bush, famous for sleeping on the steps of the U.S. Capitol night after night during her freshman term in Congress to bring awareness to the eviction crisis during COVID, and which successfully caused the Biden administration to announce an eviction ban, is looking to reclaim the seat she lost to the AIPAC-funded Wesley Bell, another Democratic legislator who stopped doing town halls to avoid critics of his support for Israel. Also, recent primary debates allow us an opportunity to observe a stark difference in strategy, and perhaps discover a debate blueprint for candidates with wide popular support to use against their massively corporate-funded opponents. These headlines and more up for discussion on today's Dissent. A lot of words. Sorry there.
It's okay. I'll have to say, Sam, heat, fires, earthquakes, tornadoes, war.
It's all
Oh my
happening.
gosh, it seems like we're close to the end. At least here in the North Country, we have good air quality today. Mm-hmm.
I'm just waiting for, the wind changes and these forest fire smoke plumes come back down in.
Yeah, but you mentioned the Doge cuts.
Yeah.
So there was this fire prevention plan. They were going to thin out the Superior National Forest, which surrounds the Boundary Waters. They were going to clean it out of all these dead trees, like the spruce budworm killed a lot of spruce trees and other trees. And these grants were held up by the Trump administration. And some of the woods that are currently on fire or were on fire off the Echo Trail near Ely, those are
Mhm.
the ones that are burning. So it really, you wonder whether if they cleaned up those parts of the forest, would the fires be as bad? So I guess definitely we can blame Doge and the Republicans, I think, for some of these, and the intensity of some of these fires, and maybe the length of how long they burn. But
Yeah, I understand that the answer is yes.
instead of we have Republicans writing letters and threatening Canada, when in fact it's those Republicans that were part of cutting funding to clean up the forests.
Right. To clean the floors, to quote the
Mm-hmm.
president.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I had said that
Sad.
he had said sweep the floors back when he was in California. I double checked. He said clean the floors, rake the
That's right.
forest. He didn't say sweep, so I apologize for the error. I don't really apologize for the error, let's be honest, but for the for the sake of accuracy, clean the floors of the forest was his message to California several years ago during his first term. And now he's saying that to Canada. Meanwhile, he defunded the ability to clean the floors from state, and not just Minnesota, but certainly where the fires are burning, those were
Mm-hmm.
targets for some floor cleaning that was that was being paid for by these federal grants that
Mm-hmm.
Doge cut. I don't know. I didn't put it on the docket for today, but speaking of Doge, I don't know if you saw any of that incredibly insane interview that Elon Musk did in London over the weekend.
I missed it.
Oh, it was editor for The Economist. I forget her name, but someone who is pretty sympathetic to big business and to CEOs and stuff like that. And she just like he had a complete meltdown.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, she said, "You're unpopular with a lot of people, and here's the reasons why." And he said, "I'm not unpopular. You're unpopular." I mean, it was a really pathetic
Wow.
showing.
She's not
He's a
as good as
ludicrous
Zoran.
person.
He's not as good as Zoran when Dami handling interviews.
Oh,
Sounds
he's
like
not.
something Trump would say. I think he's learning from his boss.
I think I think Elon Musk is the boss, and no one has given more money to Donald Trump, at least directly, than Elon Musk.
Hmm.
At least his campaigns. I mean, one could argue that the money that has been given to Donald Trump through his shitcoin, his Trump cryptocurrency,
Mm-hmm.
is a lot. Like I
Hmm.
know the Chinese gave a lot of money to that, and the various Emiratis in in the Middle East. I think the United Arab Emirates did. I think Qatar did. I think a lot of people have given Trump money through his cryptocurrency, but Elon Musk did it the old-fashioned way by giving hundreds of millions of dollars directly to the campaign for the 2024 election. So,
Mm-hmm.
what a guy!
Well, I've just been watching all of these fires in Spain and France, and now
Oh,
the earthquake in Japan. I mean, there's a huge tornado that went through Wisconsin and destroyed a town. I mean, a lot is happening in terms of weather related and due to climate change.
and drought too.
And literally, I mean, hundreds of people's homes went up in flames in France and more. They're having a trouble containing the fires. And it's dry there and it's like 104 heat degrees. And so they're just really struggling. And now the whole area of France where they produce Bordeaux wine is being destroyed, and smoke destroys grapes, as people in California, I think, learned. Um, so it's going to be, I don't, buy the Bordeaux now and hang on to it because you might not be able to buy this year's vintage.
God,
Hmm.
what a nightmare! No, I mean it's displaced hundreds of thousands of people in Spain and France. I mean it's
Apparently,
just.
the fire's really close to some manufacturing of weapons.
Oh, really?
Hmm.
Well, that's not concerning
I
at
think
all.
it's within 6 miles of some of these huge manufacturing plants for military and weapons in France. So we'll see if they're able to stop it. It looks doubtful, though.
Well, maybe the president of the United States can have some helpful advice for them.
Maybe.
Uh,
Maybe he can just send a letter. criticizing them.
Yeah, could you clean your floors? It's just unreal.
You mentioned the war, and we haven't bombed them in the last few days because we're running out of ammunition. But it's been 5 months since the start in February, and I know 18 Americans died and another over 600 have been injured.
And we don't know the severity of those.
No. And we know that 7,800 people or more have been killed in Iran and Lebanon since the start on February 28th as a result of Trump's and the Republican war.
Primarily civilians, including those 120 girls bombed the first day.
Yeah, at least 1,500 civilians since February 28th. A lot of other military personnel. So a lot of deaths. This is what happens when you do dumb things like go to war with Iran.
Or go to war, period.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm concerned also because this is now, and I know this is a touchy subject for a lot of people, but Vladimir Zelensky in Ukraine has now targeted an Iranian ship claiming that they're carrying weapons for Russia. And he's making the case that this should be considered not two separate events. The U.S. war in Iran and then Russia's war in Ukraine. He wants to merge the two.
Mm.
So, look, I've had conversations with a lot of people who want to, and understandably, who suggest that what Russia did in Ukraine is similar to, it rings similarly. And if, you're kind of a history buff, and I am to a degree, there's similarities to the NATO and the United States putting a foot down and saying, no, you can't just take Ukraine, is what, the British and other people did not do in, the late 30s when especially Hitler wanted to take the Sudetenland in Czechoslovakia. They said, okay, take that, but then you stop, right? And that was the Munich conference, and that's what a lot of people point to as being the downfall of Europe at the time. And so, what Russia was and continues to do in Ukraine is seen still by a lot of people as something similar to that. Hey, we can't allow it to happen, or Russia will take more and more and more and more. And if you look at the type of person Putin is, that's a pretty strong argument. I kind of agree with that. But there's another historicism that's worth looking at, which is World War I and the lead up to World War I. There's a lot of commitments. There's a lot of cross-pollinations here. And World War I, in a lot of people's imaginings of World War I, it started because of what happened in Sarajevo with the assassination, and then that just kind of bloomed out from there. There are other historians who suggest, well, there was this Serbian war, that Austro-Hungary versus Serbia, but that was isolated. But because of other machinations that were going on, and because the fact that the German military aristocracy just wanted to get into starting a war, they used that as an excuse to start a larger European war. And so people see that as two different wars. And it's the Germans who argue, no, it's the same war. We're doing this because we're concerned Russia is going to attack our ally Austria-Hungary because Russia is allied with Serbia. And so we want to cut Russia off at the pass by attacking France. So that's what set World War I off. And here we have this argument from Vladimir Zelensky that, hey, we are actually one of the guardrails for the United States versus Russia, which is allied with Iran. And because we're doing what we're doing and you're fighting Iran, you should back us further. So it's kind of a desperation play, if you will, because, I mean, if it weren't Trump, Zelensky might not be playing his cards this way. But because it is Trump, and Trump is easily flattered and easily sold on the idea that, hey, you can save us, now he's saying, well, look, this fight you're having against Iran is the exact same fight we're having against Russia. See, Iran and Russia are sharing stuff, and it's probably true that things are going back and forth. Well, it's not probably. We know it's true that things have gone back and forth. There have been Iranian Shahed drones that Russians have used against the Ukrainians, and it's extremely likely, almost a certainty, that Iran is being given Russian intelligence to target bases, U.S. bases around the Middle East. I mean, I'm sure that's happening. It's probably, China's probably involved in some of that information as well. But what's the danger there? Well, in World War I, it was turning what was an isolated war between Serbia and Austria-Hungary into this massive global conflagration. And it was a world war. I mean, there was fighting going on in Africa. There was concern of fighting spreading even to the Western Hemisphere vis-a-vis Mexico. The Zimmerman telegram for you World War I history buffs out there. But the point is that this is scary stuff, trying to conflate these two wars together and bring in more parties to this thing. I mean, there's a reason throughout the entire Cold War, Russia itself or the Soviet Union itself and the United States itself never went at it mano a mano. It was all done through proxies. And here it seems that Zelensky wants to say, yeah, we're your proxy, but you should really get behind us and get more involved, which makes this more and more and more of a global conflict. And I think that's...
he's smart. Zelensky is smart. And he's in D.C. today. And I think he was in London yesterday visiting their new prime minister. And so he's making the rounds, and he's going to be using different arguments to get as much support as he can get to help fight Russia. And tonight, the Senate is going to be voting on the Russian sanctions bill. Now it's called the Lindsey Graham bill because Lindsey Graham fought for it so much. And I believe that they're leveraging this moment, the day of his funeral, to take the vote, and it will likely pass.
I mean, yeah, I agree with you that from the perspective of a desperate Ukraine, and they are desperate. I mean, in our conversation with JP, I mean, he laid it out. This is attrition at this point, is who can last longer, and it looks like Russia simply has more manpower to last longer. So the desperation clearly is on the Ukrainian side here, and he's using his ability to flatter. I mean, just think about it. How many months ago was it where Zelensky was hat in hand in the White House and J.D. Vance was berating him for not wearing a suit to his face in front of cameras, to the point where now Zelensky, just like a lot of these, just like Netanyahu and just like many of these other world leaders, have figured out how to play Trump. And he's doing it. Yeah, it's smart from his purposes, but his purposes could drag us into a global, could make this a global war, like a huge, terrifying conflict. And look, nobody knows what the solution is in Ukraine. It's not clear because Putin is nuts.
But it begs the question, if Putin wanted to, he could just destroy Ukraine. He could.
Well, yeah, it's a nuclear power.
The question is why is he dragging this out? Why are they pursuing the tactics they're pursuing? Because if they wanted to take that land, they have more power. They could do it.
Yeah,
they could destroy the country.
They're a nuclear power. That's exactly right. But once you pull that lever, I mean, you can never unpull it.
But they have more. They could bomb. They could obliterate everything without nuclear weapons, I think.
Yeah,
but they're
possibly.
Not.
I don't know.
But they're not.
No, I mean, there's a certain level of restraint. I mean, part of the initial argument from Putin was that we have to take this land in Ukraine because it's primarily ethnic Russians, not Ukrainians, that live in this land. So if he were to just start, doing what you're suggesting, that would, obviate his previous arguments. Not that a guy like that probably cares all that much, but he does have political considerations. I mean, he still, has constituents, even if those constituents for him are primarily other kleptocratic billionaires. He does not care about general public sentiment, obviously, because, public sentiment in Russia is not all on his side. I mean, it's not dissimilar to Trump. I mean, there are so many similarities between these two men, Putin and Trump. And, none of these people seem to be acting like in a predictable way. It's impossible to predict. I mean, if Putin were not nuts, you would have predicted, yeah, he'll threaten, he'll yell and scream, but he won't actually invade Ukraine. The fact that he's a psycho, totally throws that predictability out of the window. I mean, he attacked Ukraine. It makes no sense. It continues to make no sense. I mean, it's a disaster for everyone.
He sees this opportunity. The U.S. is weak right now. Europe is weak right now. He is leveraging this moment to go into Ukraine, and I'm sure has plans to probably invade Poland or other countries, is my guess. Let's take back land that he thinks belongs to Russia.
Right. I mean, a lot of Russians are dying as a result. And a lot of Ukrainians, a lot of civilians on both sides. And now Russia's infrastructure is being attacked. And I don't know. I mean, look, I'm not a big fan of war. I don't know that any of this is good. And certainly, what is the benefit of Ukraine, targeting all these Russian infrastructure, oil infrastructure facilities? I mean, is it helping them? Probably. I don't know. But what are the long-term impacts of this? Not in terms of geopolitics, but in terms of our environment, in terms of just the health of regular people. I mean, these clouds of black smoke flowing over Moscow or St. Petersburg or whatever, this is not healthy. This is not good for people. I mean, similar, Russia is attacking more and more civilian targets, but also strategic targets in Ukraine as well. It's the same kind of a thing. None of this is good. Meanwhile, what is being bombed? I mean, it's impossible to know. And then if we turn back to Iran and the Middle East, the Houthis are now making themselves an incredibly effective presence. And they're showing they can bomb targets much further north than most people assumed they could. They're hitting ports now in Saudi Arabia, and there's talk of them threatening the Suez Canal now.
Oh, Trump has made this so much worse. But I will just say, it sounds like Iran does not want to come back to the bargaining table. They're refusing to negotiate right now.
Well, why would they?
The U.S. isn't bombing, so maybe this will just be at this stalemate where Iran, the Houthis, they're controlling the waterways, and shipping it may go back to some normalcy, not for the U.S., not ships aligned with the U.S., but ships aligned with Iran, or they're paying large fees, and that could be the outcome. This could
Trump
be I don't know. I don't know the way. I don't know how Trump gets out of this, but
he has to take the L and get the hell out. He just has to. But
I think so.
He doesn't want to. Hence the escalation trap that people have written about.
Let's see how he messages out of this. Literally, he can tell people that COVID is not a bad thing, and you'll be fine, and we'll be gone in a month, and people will believe it. So whatever he says, 35% of the U.S. will believe whatever he says, even though
his cult will certainly. I agree with you. His cult will follow him, but I think the problem is he's also surrounded himself with neocons who berate him every day. He talks about not continuing. And he agrees with the last person he listens to. And he's listening more to Marco Rubio right now, a dyed-in-the-wool neocon, a bomb everybody type of guy. I mean, it's good that Lindsey Graham's not in the picture anymore. I mean, not to dance on a man's grave, but shit, I'll dance on his grave. I mean, he was awful for the United States and awful for foreign policy. I mean, it's just
like Trump said at giving the eulogy. Not everyone liked him.
Not everyone liked him, and I will
ad-libbing, going off script. Not everyone liked him.
Yeah. In fact, I would venture to say that probably most people in the United States don't like Lindsey Graham. Geez, it's very funny that he would have this pre-written eulogy and stop and say, "Oh, well, that's not true." It's just like the White House Correspondents' Dinner. I mean, he was supposed to tell these dumb jokes that no one was going to laugh at anyways, but instead of just delivering the joke, he rambled on and on and on and on before delivering the punchline because he had other things to say. And then kept saying, "Oh, who wrote this? This is terrible," while he's reading it.
Oh my God, he totally bombed, and it was total embarrassment. I think he wanted to knock it out, and he bombed, and no one was laughing. You're right. No one was laughing.
He should have just, let that, like when they did it, back in February or whatever, when the shooter ended it before his time to speak or whatever. And they should have just left it at that.
They should just let them, he should just let them roast him, and then people would laugh, I think.
Oh, yeah. Well, him getting roasted at a White House Correspondents' Dinner is arguably what got him into politics in the first place, if you recall. When Obama made that joke at his expense. But also, I think Seth Meyers, he was the comedian that did it that year. I think he also made jokes at Trump's expense that year.
Do we have clips from the funeral today at the cathedral, I think, in Washington, D.C.?
I mean, there are clips.
Trump is sleeping. Trump is just dozing off. He's in the front of the church, and he's visibly dozing off. And before that, he was chatting with J.D. Vance while everyone else around them is, quiet, serene. No one else is talking, and he's chit-chatting, and J.D. Vance is smiling and smirking. So who knows what they're chatting about, but a lot of the cabinet members are there behind Trump, including Russ Vought from, I don't know why he's there, from OMB, but...
Well, I mean, he's one of the most important people in the White House, the architect of Project 2025.
I did see that the Trump administration, the judge ruled against his request to end vote by mail. So he's asking the Supreme Court to take up the case. Did you see that? There he is.
I did not. But, there he is sleeping.
Is that Kavanaugh?
Now he's awake. Yeah, that is Kavanaugh.
Wow.
Yeah, he's next
Mark
to
Wayne
JD.
Mullin. Mark Wayne Mullins. I see Zelensky there. There's
Yep.
Russell Vought right in front to the right of Zelensky. Yeah, Marco Rubio.
I was expecting to see Netanyahu
Why
in the frame.
Why does Bessent get to sit in the front row?
Bessent is there, front row.
I don't know. I think right to the right of that, and out of the frame is Thune, the Senate Majority Leader, John Thune.
I think this bald guy here, isn't he the FCC commissioner?
That's Russell Vought, the head of the
that's Vought. Okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
Someone's wearing a face mask in the back there.
Here's another.
Trump's not even sitting by his son. His son is to the right.
Well, I mean, why would he?
I don't know. He looks, he must be hot in there. People have perspiration on their face. It's hot.
I'll be honest with you, Jen. If I was at Lindsey Graham's funeral, I would also fall asleep. So I'm not gonna hit Trump on this one. I think fair enough. I sympathize with the man in this particular context. God, this is quite the timeline we're on here. It's crazy that that Trump's outliving all these people, by the way.
Yeah. So you brought up before we get to elections, the other thing I wanted to mention, and maybe you can put up the graph from the New York Times, but transit grants. So these are grants from the federal government, billions of dollars to communities, states, cities to fund transportation, like new railroad tracks, train stations, bus service, rapid transit, bus service, light rail. And apparently Trump is holding back the funds, didn't dole out any of these grants last year, even though Congress passed legislation to fund these projects. And these projects take years and years to get through the process and the permits and to raise their own state or local revenue to match the federal funds potentially. And more than $7 billion has been appropriated but not obligated to any project. So this is bad for many reasons. Bad for the public who rely on public transportation, and bad for business. It's bad for jobs and all the labor jobs that go with these huge projects, some in the, billions of dollars. And you can see 25, 26, nothing under Trump. I mean, labor unions should be pissed. They rely on these funds to build bridges and roads and
a lot of different unions are involved in
and
those
it's not
trades
this is not a red blue state thing. Like Minneapolis is on the line. Salt Lake City, $2.3 trillion for a project. Minneapolis,
trillion?
750 million for a project in Minneapolis. Charleston, South Carolina, Low Country Rapid Transit, 374 million.
Right. No way, it's
Chapel Hill, North
trillion
Carolina.
with a T. Billion, right?
I'm sorry, billion. Did I say trillion?
Billion.
Yes, you did. I'm dealing with healthcare. We talk about trillions of dollars in healthcare.
Okay.
Let's see. Let me look for other red states. Columbus, Ohio.
Not for a Salt Lake City transportation project.
I know. Austin, Texas. Let's see. Virginia, Columbus, Ohio, Cincinnati, Raleigh, North Carolina, Tucson, Arizona. I mean, these are projects. Doesn't matter. Red, blue states. No one's getting their funds, and it's prevents them from moving forward. And it could not just delay projects. Communities might decide we can't go forward with it without the federal funds.
So just for anyone listening and not viewing, we're showing a graph of the number of these new capital investment grants that the president has signed over the years since the Obama administration. There's at least one every year, and several years have 11, which is the most. But every single year through Obama, Trump's first term, and then Biden, these grants are going out every single year. But Trump in 25 and Trump in 26, 0 and 0. The only 2 years where nothing's happened with respect to these. And these are important. I mean, my God, especially in Minneapolis, for those who don't remember, God, when was it, Jen, when that bridge, the I-35 bridge fell? That was...
Is it 2008?
I think that sounds right, 2008. Yeah. I mean, it's important to renew our infrastructure and have new projects going on. I get so jealous when I look at China or Japan with these incredible high-speed rail projects. I mean, you can get around these. China's a very large country. We're a very large country. And Chinese people can get from major city to major city to major city relatively cheaply on these incredibly fast trains. And Japan, my God, they're so fast, and they just zip up and down the big island. And what do we got? We have to deal with these horrible airlines.
We do have some trains. We still have Amtrak.
We do.
And I did take the train from Minneapolis, St. Paul to Chicago.
So have I recently.
But I took the new route, which is the Borealis route, and it's more scenic, and it goes along the Mississippi River, and it's through small little towns in Wisconsin. And I just had a friend take that route yesterday from Chicago to St. Paul, and so people are using it. The train was full when I was on it. People are using it, even if it takes 7, 8, 9 hours. People can do other things, and I socialized a lot. I met a lot of nice people. It was nice to talk to people and not be online or on my device. Yeah,
you can go to the diner car and hang out. And when I was on the Empire Builder, which was also incredibly scenic. I mean, but there were volunteer tour guides basically who were just kind of narrating through the trip what you were seeing and all that kind of stuff, and that was neat as well. Yeah, I went down the river, the St. Croix, and then across and through all those Wisconsin towns all the way to Milwaukee and then down to Chicago. It's very, very nice, very pleasant. But 8 or 9 hours sounds about right.
So we could, if we had faster trains, faster tracks, just think of all the folks who'd be moving around the country. Tourism, visiting. I mean, it would be great.
It's so much easier to take a train than a plane. You don't have to go through all that rigmarole, and you don't have to pop your ears and all that kind of stuff, that makes air travel, it's very unpleasant. When I was a kid, I loved air travel. And it's just, maybe it's being a kid I don't know, but certainly as an adult, it's just this like depressing experience where you're treated kind of like crap. I mean, not by the the stewards and stewardesses or whatever they're called now, but they're usually wonderful. But by the company itself, I mean, you just feel that kind of corporate wall between you and a good experience, and then having to like upgrade every little thing for $20 here, $30 here, check a bag. It's just a miserable experience that the airlines have created for people in order to pack
Yeah, and
as
I'm
many
sure it's
people into
better
those
for
things as
the
possible.
environment and it's cheaper,
Oh, for
and you can
sure.
move more people on trains than planes. So think if we had electric trains too, way more
And also
efficient.
just the security experience is different because, the TSA stuff with airplanes, it's all theater. Every time the government does one of those tests where they just send people through with dangerous items and stuff, TSA always fails those every single time. It's all
Wow.
theater anyways. I mean, like they're really good at catching your laptop not being separated from your bag. But when the testers go in, government testers go in carrying actual like
I don't
explosives or
want to hear
whatever.
this, Sam. Don't tell
But
me this. I'm gonna just pretend that it's effective, so I feel
well, that's
safe
why
on
it's
the
there.
plane.
That is why it's there. It's there so that people can feel like they're effective. Otherwise, it's meaningless. And by the way, I like if anyone wants something extremely fun to watch, there was a show years ago called Adam Ruins Everything. It was on True TV. I don't know where you find it now, but Adam Conover, by the way, if you want a fantastic, interview show on YouTube, Adam Conover has one now where he interviews people, and it's just fascinating stuff all the time. He's great, big time union guy, member of the Writers Guild of America, and very, very good politically, but also really bright guy who had that show, Adam Ruins Everything. And they did an entire show on the TSA and how it's all just theater and all a bunch of BS. It's just there to make you feel like your experience is going to be safe.
I don't know. I think the dogs are pretty good. They're looking for, I don't know what, bomb material, narcotics. I bet you that those dogs' noses work pretty well. So
Okay. Well, they don't catch the testers either. So
they don't. Okay, let's pivot to politics because you brought up some races, and I want to talk about the William Lawrence race in Michigan. Is that CD7?
That is CD7.
Okay, so Republicans are funding that race, and I guess they're funding, they think, the weakest candidate so the Republicans can win the general. Is that true?
Love this. I don't know if that's true. I know that's true with respect to, I know there are other races for sure that's true.
No, they're funding it. I'm just wondering, is that the reason why? Is William Lawrence, who I think is the more progressive candidate?
Oh, by far. Not
weakest.
Even close.
Okay.
No. He is by far the most progressive. Yeah.
Yeah, and they perceive him to be easier to beat than the Navy SEALs guy, Matt Matzman or
Masdam. But there's also that Bridget Brink.
Okay.
But yeah, I think Republicans are miscalculating in the same way that Democrats did when they're like, oh, I think Trump will be the easiest to beat. I think Republicans are making the exact same calculation that Hillary Clinton made in 2016, like hoping that it would be Trump because he's the easiest to beat.
Right, but you know what's weird,
they're fooling
Sam?
themselves.
Maybe, but what's weird? Republicans are running ads in Minnesota against Peggy Flanagan. So Republicans want Andrew Craig to win in the primary.
Well, that
is strange, isn't it? Because you would think that
backwards.
You would think that they want Peggy Flanagan to win because you think that they would think she's the... They must think that Angie Craig is weaker, or they must have some dirt on Angie Craig and not on Peggy Flanagan. Because they have all the votes. They have all the bad votes that Angie Craig
Angie Craig is weaker. She's weaker in the same way that Haley Stevens is. Angie Craig, most of her money is coming from like AIPAC and crypto, which primarily the people that give those PACs money are Republicans.
I mean, Angie Craig right now is running on the fact that she thinks she's more electable. Her biggest message is, I can beat the Republican, which is not true. But Republicans are spending money to beat Peggy Flanagan in the primary. So they have Angie Craig's voting record. They have other things on Angie Craig, so they definitely want Angie Craig in the November election. So
this is so much smarter.
This totally destroys Angie Craig's argument about being more electable. So I don't think Peggy should be talking about this. Why are Republicans putting up ads, spending a lot of money to basically destroy Peggy in the primary? Unless they think Peggy's going to win and they're starting these ads early. Unless they've done polling and they believe Peggy's going to win the primary, so they're going to start attacking
Peggy's
her
almost
now.
certain. That could be it too.
I think
it's a double-edged sword, Jen, because that's an argument Haley Stevens is using. That's an argument Francesca Hong's opponents in Wisconsin are using. I think it's a ridiculous argument because I think the two candidates arguing about Republicans might or might not say about them is flat and stupid. I don't think it's a good argument. And I think, and that kind of is Angie Craig's primary message. I'm more electable. Republicans would rather face, Flanagan than me, that kind of a thing. That is not, it used to work. That used to be a really, really, really powerful argument because that was the argument used to preference Hillary Clinton over
but
Bernie
that's
Sanders.
so strange. In Minnesota,
that is strange.
The Democrats going to win. The Democrats going to win.
I think your second guess. Oh, I agree. Either way, but I think I think that's true in Michigan as well. I think your second idea is probably more likely. I think Republicans are seeing the polling is clear. Angie Craig is doomed. She's not got a hope or a prayer. I mean,
did you see the Minnesota Senator John Hoffman, the one that was shot and survived? He came out and accused Angie Craig of sending in a friend, which happens to be apparently David Wellstone, into his hospital room to convince him to endorse Angie Craig.
Right.
And he came out publicly. He supports Peggy Flanagan in the U.S. Senate race, and he made this public, and the Star Tribune did a whole article about this. Makes Angie not look good.
Angie and David Wellstone are denying that this happened.
Okay.
For the record, I mean, she was asked about that yesterday in a debate. So these two candidates. So interestingly, in Minnesota, Minnesota Public Radio held a debate just in a little tiny studio, sit down debate. I don't like those. I prefer.
Well, this is where they do their shows, and now they live stream them on YouTube. And it's not just radio anymore.
They just take a studio, like go partner with a television studio, do it in a studio. Have even because what Fox News did in Michigan. Local Fox News, not national Fox News, but the local affiliate in Detroit for Fox did because last night was a debate between Abdul El-Sayed and Haley Stevens. So it's kind of the tale of two tapes, and I do want to get into that. But they did it in a studio. They had a small audience of maybe 20 people. And so they did some audience reaction shots during the thing. It added some context, it adds some weight. The candidates were not seated. They were standing at podiums. It looked so much more professional. And also the moderator, it's worth, I didn't want to bother clipping just how good the moderators were versus each other, but the moderator in Michigan was just on his game. Really, really, really good, exceptional. He didn't let either candidate, he's followed up with both people when they wouldn't answer a question, because Haley Stevens is famous for not answering questions. Now, I will say, Angie Craig is way more substantive than Haley Stevens. Haley Stevens never answers with substance. It's all sloganeering only. Whereas Angie Craig actually has some substance. It's substance I don't particularly care for by and large, because she usually brags about all the bills she worked on with Republicans and how good she is at working with Republicans.
Also, that message is not going to work this election, I don't think.
Well, she had on her website her pride about working with Tom Emmer, the number 3.
I remember she used to talk when I'm at the table. Remember, I think I've said this before. She would talk about the bills she co-authored with my opponent, Pete Stauber, at FarmFest. I'm right there at the same table. But I saw the studio shot of Peggy Flanagan and Angie Craig, and they're almost right next to each other. debating
Yep.
each other. So I'm sure it wasn't comfortable for them.
No, and we're going to explore. We're going to explore this because I think it's going to be really enlightening for us and for our audience to kind of just break down these two different debates and how I want to focus specifically on Abdul El-Sayed and Peggy Flanagan, specifically on debate strategy and also comfort level. Abdul El-Sayed seems like he's been doing this since the cradle. I mean, it's just incredible, his discipline and his messaging ability and his ability to stay on narrative. Notice I didn't say stay on message. He does that, and he's been doing that. But stay on, like Peggy Flanagan stays on message, but stay on narrative, as in he's created this narrative, which is true, at the benefit of being true, which is my opponent is funded by all these horrible corporations and AIPAC and blah, 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 blah. I'm not. That's a huge difference. So that's going to affect all of the substance that I talk about, because I want to do this for people in Michigan, this, and this. But my opponent's being basically paid off not to do any of those things. That's the narrative that he's built. And every single question he's answering, he reframes as my opponent's getting paid off not to do the very things that we're talking about. And then indeed, every time she answers a question, it completely lacks any substance whatsoever. There is nothing there. It's all sloganeering from her because she's got no substance. Because if she lands on some substance, it might piss off the people that are giving her money. And that's precisely the point she plays into the narrative.
Are there any new polls in these races? I haven't seen any since the last time we talked about it. The only poll I saw was Tallarico in the race in Texas, the U.S. Senate race in Texas. He was up by 5 points, 45% to 40% against Ken Paxton. I'm sure people know who Ken Paxton is. Ken Paxton is not liked. It was a solid pollster.
Okay.
And they broke it out by groups, and I think it was like 1,600 people completed the poll. And Tallarico was doing really well with folks, African Americans, Native Americans, Latinos, and Paxton was doing well with white folks. So there's definitely a race ethnic difference on how they're polling.
Sure.
But when in the last presidential race, a lot of those folks voted for Trump, and now it looks like they're supporting Tallarico. So there's a swing.
Well, a larger percentage than was expected voted for Trump.
Yeah.
And then Republicans redistricted based on that swing staying in place. So again, and we talked about the dummy mandering before, but that's what's meant. They gerrymandered based on numbers that might have been a one-off in 2024, which may ultimately bite them in the butt.
So I don't have anything else on elections.
Well, I do want to bring up Missouri. So Cori Bush, she was part of the squad. She has basically her whole life, she's been an advocate for homeless people, for the very poor, for the least well-off among us. And she brought that energy to Congress with her. And she did that sleep-in protest thing where, COVID happened and people lost their ability to make money for months on end. And unless an individual governor in an individual state passed a moratorium on evictions, people were getting evicted. And so she's like, no. And that was happening in Missouri because they have a Republican governor and Republicans, and they did not care. And so she's like, no, we need to deal with this nationally. And so she did this where she slept several nights in a row on the steps of the U.S. Capitol. And imagine, and this is not in warm weather, by the way, this is cold. And it got Joe Biden's attention, and he signed a 60-day moratorium on evictions and credited her with pushing it. And then, and she was feted and praised by all the Democratic leaders and all that kind of stuff. And then, come 2024 and the primaries come along, and she and Jamal Bowman and Summer Lee in Pittsburgh, the three of them were targeted by AIPAC with just obnoxious amounts of money, huge amounts of money. Now, Summer Lee survived. She's doing very, very well in that seat out there, and continues to. but it was enough money. And part of it was redistricting in New York hurt Jamal Bowman. And other people like shifted into his district that probably shouldn't have, and that split vote and allowed more conservative to win. But Jamal Bowman, there's a book coming out where he basically spills all the tea on Democrats and Democratic leadership. I think that's coming out in September, October, something like that. Anyways, I'm going to pre-order that. I am very excited to read that book. But Cori Bush also was targeted by AIPAC, and she also lost. And in her case, to this guy named Wesley Bell, who has distinguished himself by being absolutely dreadful. And he's another Democrat, Jen, that he did a town hall or two, got yelled at, and decided, you know what, this ain't for me. I mean, acting just like a Republican. And what was he being yelled at about? Well, his unyielding, just like that Adam Smith guy we talked about last week, his unyielding support of Israel. And these protests have not caused him to change his mind. He's sticking, I mean, his entire political career is bought and paid for by AIPAC. And, and so Cori Bush now, like a number of ads that came in against her and painted her as this horrible villain. It worked last time, but she's saying now that people are just coming up to her randomly saying, you know what? 2 years ago, I saw those ads. I believed them. Shame on me. Now I know what's going on. I'm aware of AIPAC, all these things. You have my support. So I think very likely that Cori Bush will get her seat back. And it's important to have someone like that. There's not very many people in Congress whose main issue is homelessness and taking care of the least among us. And she was a very strong and powerful voice for that. And part of the reason I'm so excited to get a hold of Jamal Bowman's book is because he's spilling the tea on how leadership operates and how these things were done. Because if you've noticed in this campaign cycle, the DCCC and Hakeem Jeffries, they've gotten behind some pretty noxious incumbents. And he says, I'm going to back every incumbent. And they've really gone to the mattresses for certain pretty centrist, right-wing Democratic incumbents. But it's like, did he do the same? Did he put in the same kind of effort for the incumbents named Jamal Bowman and Cori Bush? No. And so these kind of things, I mean, it's just the heart and soul of the Democratic Party is being decided right now. It really is. And I think that this year is simply the opening salvo in what's going to be a multi-year process of just like, I mean, this is very different than the Tea Party. I've likened it to the Tea Party in the past just because it completely changed the Republican Party, but the Tea Party was astroturfed. It was paid for by the Koch brothers. This is grassroots in the true sense. This is coming from the bottom up. And by the way, Jen, Troy Jackson got the official stamp.
Not a shocker.
Yeah. Did you see the? Well, no, it was preordained after the votes. But did you happen to catch his speech? I should have clipped that. I didn't clip that.
No. Did you listen to it?
Oh yeah. He has a saying that now is so well known in Maine that people are saying it with him when he says it, and it's like we're not doing this. We're not doing this for the left or for the right. We're doing this from the bottom up.
Yep.
And the whole crowd does that in that sing-songy thing with him. I mean, and he's using that line for 30 years. For 30 years, Susan Collins has been concerned. We can't take another 6 more years of her concern.
I think that's all he needs to say. I think that's really? That's a very simple, effective bumper sticker message.
Oh yeah, but he was super emotional.
Good.
He's not anywhere near as charismatic as some of these other people, but he has a special kind of, clearly it works in Maine. And he was super emotional when he talks about his family and he talks about his union activism. He's practically in tears. Or it seems that way.
That's what they need. They want authentic. They don't want fake. They want a real union labor guy. They want someone that knows Maine, grew up in Maine, worked in Maine, raised a family in Maine.
Well, and that honestly, this was the appeal of Graham Plantner as well. I mean, Graham Plantner's downfall was he committed a horrible crime. And
he's also from, sort of a privileged background.
sort of.
His dad is an attorney. Yeah, I mean, his grandfather was
yeah,
a famous artist. I mean, there's generational wealth there. Whereas,
is there? I mean, I know broke
yes.
attorneys.
Okay,
Like,
I think there was, and he went to a private school. He lived in D.C. for a while. I mean, I just really think more people will be able to connect with Jackson.
All right. Well, I'm obviously not going to defend Graham Plattner, but I mean, someone, I'm also, by the way, I'm also sympathetic to the traitor to his class argument. I mean, why do we keep pointing at FDR as being one of the greatest, leaders the United States has ever had? I mean, he certainly had his flaws, but FDR was also one of the, most posh, from one of the most upper class blue blood backgrounds of any president, just like Teddy Roosevelt, who was also one of the great progressives in United States history.
I mean, look at Pritzker, governor of Illinois, very wealthy. And they're fighting for workers.
Yeah,
and
that's that traitor to your class, kind of mentality that really, that's very attractive. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I don't think if someone's a real class traitor like that, like they grew up privileged but they're fighting for the working man. I mean, that's not something they have to be believable and they have to be, put pay to what they're saying, but that's a powerful message, and I don't think that should be overlooked or dismissed. And I don't know that Graham Plattner was, like upper class. I mean, more privileged certainly than Troy Jackson. There's no doubt, no question about that. But a traitor to your class argument is a powerful one, and if it's true, like J.B. Pritzker, it seems. I mean, it's really hard to support a billionaire, Jen. I find it very difficult to.
I know. Hey, is there any news in Wisconsin? I heard someone was trying to do a write-in campaign for governor.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Okay.
No, it seems like Francesca Hong is such the catbird seat, and they don't have the conservative Democrats just don't have enough time. I mean, it's 2 weeks away.
Right.
They have Wisconsin's primary is the same day as Minnesota. So August 4th is huge with Michigan and Missouri and several other states. August 11th is huge with Minnesota and Wisconsin. Both have big statewide races that are incredibly, incredibly important. So, yeah, I mean, these are just, and by the way, Francesca Hong has just been doing the interview circuit with national podcasts and stuff. And she just gets better and better and better with these things. Very, very impressed with some of her recents. If you want to see a really good one that she did one with Mehdi Hasan on his Zeteo network. Really good. And Mehdi Hasan is such a good interviewer. And, he holds anybody who comes on with him, he'll hold their feet to the fire and he'll also give them a chance to say their piece, both. So he's such a good interviewer. Take notes. I'm telling myself, take notes when you watch Mehdi Hasan. Okay. But yeah, let's turn to some debate stuff before we sign off, shall we?
Well, I have one more news item. I know we talk about prediction markets a lot.
You do.
I do. So Minnesota was the first state to pass legislation to ban prediction markets in Minnesota. But a federal judge recently ruled, I think yesterday, that they're going to temporarily block that law from taking effect. It was supposed to be effective August 1st. So this was a big deal to the two big ones, Polymarket and Kelshi.
Yep.
And it's at least temporary, so we'll see what happens.
And Kelshi PAC has given money to Angie Craig.
Very interesting.
How about that, folks?
The other news item, and this is people are hearing about this more and more, the cyclosporiasis, the cases from contaminated lettuce, other produce potentially. Well, there's new cases in North Carolina that are not linked to the lettuce, not linked to Taco Bell. And the Democrats, mainly the person heading this up is the ranking member of the House Oversight Committee, Representative Garcia from California.
Okay.
Democrats are demanding information from Taylor Farms, the farm associated with the lettuce that was going to Taco Bell, on whether Taylor Farms' ties to Trump to influence the FDA, because the FDA issued a statement recently that its initial finding that lettuce imported by Taylor Farms, they said it was a false positive. In retrospect, they went back and corrected themselves. Well,
Right.
Democrats want to know, Taylor Farms, did you influence that change? And they found that Taylor Farms donated $2 million to a PAC tied to Trump last year, and $1 million tied to the Mega Inc. PAC, according to the FEC reports. So we'll see if it really was just a positive, and they're trying to help Taylor Farms business. But also, new cases are coming up that they don't think is related to the lettuce. So people are avoiding buying their vegetables in grocery stores, avoiding anything with the lettuce or parsley or cilantro in their fast food purchases.
I can't. It's like
you're
makes
vegan,
up a huge,
so I don't know what you're
huge part of
do.
my diet.
Luckily I've been growing stuff in my garden pots on my patio that I've been eating.
I don't eat iceberg. The greens I eat primarily, kale, arugula, and romaine. I eat a lot of romaine lettuce. And
I would just encourage you to buy it from the farmer's market. Buy it locally.
Yeah.
And wash it well.
Yeah. Well, there's a company not far from here that sells hydroponic grown greens. So I get.
Is that romaine. The one in Bayfield, Wisconsin?
It's in Wisconsin. Yeah. So I get those. But yeah, that's. No, it's scary, and I think about it because, produce, that's where I spend most of when I'm at the grocery store, most of my time is spent in the produce section. Yeah, I've been thinking about cyclosporiasis and explosive diarrhea. Boy, it sounds...
Oh, man, I can't believe you said that. Okay, I have a good news story quick to end our podcast today, but also health-related because I follow a lot of health news. So there were 3 young men, I guess they were in their 30s, hiking up the tallest mountain in Montana. And they were almost to the peak, almost to the summit. They left at 2 a.m. And when the sun was breaking, they were at this plateau close to the peak. And one of the gentlemen tripped, and his hiking stick punctured his side, and it went all the way through his side, under his arm, behind his shoulder.
Oh my!
And because he was worried about the cost of emergency airlift services, air ambulance, to get out of there. He's a nurse, and he apparently specializes in wound care. He evaluated himself, gave instructions to his 2 friends, and said, I think I'm okay to hike back the 10 miles down the mountain. They called 911 and had an ambulance waiting, but he did not want to pay for the air ambulance service because he knew it would bankrupt him, because it could be, $150,000, $200,000.
Right.
When they got to the ambulance, drove him to the nearest hospital, they said, if I pull this hiking stick out of you, you could bleed to death, and we're not equipped to save your life. So they wanted to put him in another ambulance to the hospital he works at, a larger hospital, and he refused that because he knows how expensive ground ambulance can be. So his friends drove him to the hospital he works at.
My God.
They said, we want to get you in surgery right away. We can't because we have another emergency case ahead of you. You have to wait 2 hours. He's like, just put me under and just pull this thing out, because he knew it wasn't, close to any vital organs, and that he probably wouldn't bleed to death. But luckily he survived, and he took a couple days off and was back at work. The only pain he had was from removing it. But isn't that, miraculous story that he did not die.
But the fact that a nurse would be bankrupted from getting medical care, a nurse.
Yes.
You think,
But this is how expensive these air ambulances are, because most people don't cover, health insurance doesn't cover it.
Right, but nurses should make enough money where that's not a concern. To get care at the hospital you work at.
You have to be pretty wealthy to pay
I know with that, but then it was a matter of
ride.
getting transported to a hospital that can actually take care of him.
I'm sure that if he was in I'm sure his friends would have forced him to do it if he was in bad shape, but he evaluated himself and said, I think I can hike the 10 miles down. That's unbelievable.
But then the follow-up of the ground ambulance going to the hospital he should work at. It's like that. And knowing that it's too expensive to get care at the hospital he works at. This is...
But I do that. I know that some of this stuff is wasteful. That's an emergency. I don't think that is wasteful. That's necessary. But I tell them I don't need a dental x-ray this year because I just had one. I'm like, it's just a way for a lot of these clinics, providers, hospitals to bill and increase their revenue. And I feel like I know enough that I'm like, I don't need these this year. It's just something that they can bill for.
Yeah, but most people need to rely on if their doctor thinks.
I know they need to trust their doctors.
Yeah,
that they're prescribed, but that's not always the case. There's a lot of wasteful utilization when it should be going to people that really need it. They need those services.
Well, and like I say, these hospitals and clinics are nickeling and dime. It's not the doctor's fault, but like I think I mentioned this weeks ago, but like when I got blood work done, when I got the bill, each individual test cost some exorbitant amount of money. And plus just the actual sticking the needle in was its own line item. And then the use of the phlebotomist's time was a different line item. How are these two different line items? It's just, what are we doing?
It's just sad that we live in a country where people cannot afford to save their own life. You know what I mean? This is the country we're living in now. I have a hard time dealing with that. Like, it can't be this way. Other countries, people have access to free healthcare pretty much. The taxes pay for it. They don't have to worry about the financial implications and forego needed healthcare. This country, not true.
Including an hour and a half drive north from us.
Yeah.
Free healthcare. Mm-hmm. Universal.
So let's hope the progressives win and can get people access to healthcare without bankrupting everybody.
So I wanted to kind of do this comparison because we had the debate in Michigan last night and we had the debate in Minnesota yesterday. I think they recorded it in the morning. I don't know. Did you catch it live by any chance?
It was on Minnesota Public Radio at 11 o'clock Central Time live.
Okay.
And then they replayed it at 9 o'clock the next night. And I'm sure you can go to their website and watch it.
Yeah. The whole thing's on YouTube, which is of course where I catch many things. But anyway, so the reason I thought this would be interesting as a comparison is because the dynamics are almost identical. It's a extremely corporate-backed, AIPAC-backed, backed by like all the same people that back Republicans candidate on the one side. In Michigan, that's Haley Stevens. In Minnesota, that's Angie Craig, versus a much more left-coded candidate. Now, there are differences. Abdul El-Sayed has been in state government, but as a public health official. So not a politician. He did run for governor once. He did not win in the primary. Gretchen Whitmer did. She became the governor. But he hasn't had the same dynamics as an elected official, meaning a record and something people can poke at. Whereas Peggy Flanagan, having been an elected official and being a lieutenant governor, she's part of an organization called the Democratic Lieutenant Governor Association or something. And they have PAC funding that backs them. And there's some, corporations that put money into that PAC. So unlike Abdul El-Sayed, who can confidently say with absolutely no reservations that no corporate PAC is my campaign is completely untouched by corporate money, which he can say very easily.
No, Peggy Flanagan can say that because the money being spent by the Lieutenant Governor Association, that's IE, that's independent expenditures. She has no idea what that group is doing. Right, but
Abdul El-Sayed isn't getting IE. I mean, he's getting IE, but none of it's coming from.
Okay, well, I still think
but there are some bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she can, but it's not. There's an asterisk where there isn't one with Abdul El-Sayed, which is unfortunate. Also, another difference is Abdul El-Sayed has been absolutely clear on Israel-Palestine from long before, the genocide began. And Peggy Flanagan, initially, she did that thing that so many Democratic politicians do, where she's going around looking for support and sends a policy paper to absolutely everyone, including AIPAC. Of course, they said no to her because of her positions. But I mean, the fact that she did it also gives her less of a less of a lane of attack, I guess you could say. So those are some unfortunate things. And if people around the country are wondering, why don't I hear as much about the Minnesota race as I do about some of these other races, it's because she's not as clearly like in that like leftist insurgent camp. I mean, she's part of the Democratic establishment in the state of Minnesota. She's definitely on the left side of the party, but she's part of the establishment and, you know, has some of that stain of a Democratic establishment politician on her, which, you know, that's
I don't think it's necessarily a stain. I mean,
fair enough, but
she's a progressive Democrat, and she's been a progressive Democrat her entire political career.
Right, but it's not the same. And while people in the Minnesota DSA are definitely supporting her among their options, she's not DSA endorsed. But neither is Abdul El-Sayed, but that was kind of a specific decision he wanted to make. But I'm thinking this is kind of like, this might be the last time that happens, where a statewide candidate is afraid to associate like that. I think that won't be the case moving forward, just because these candidates are we just
gonna? Are you gonna just play a clip and
we're gonna dive in? So here's what I want to do. I want to just, well, maybe you can make a suggestion here, because what I did was I clipped all the moments where either Abdul El-Sayed or Peggy Flanagan make their attacks, or redirect a question to make the attack on the opponent. Now, there's far more times when Abdul El-Sayed does it. So I want to just kind of compare these two things. So let's start with Michigan. Let's start with Abdul El-Sayed. Oh, I did get it up on my bigger screen here.
Yay, technology.
Technology. All right. I got my cheat sheet and I got my computer going, so we're all good. It's all the way at the bottom. Scroll. All right. So, and it happens right away. Like, they do an opening statement where they just basically talk about themselves. Not unusual for an opening statement. But then question number one comes up. Now, I also want to point out that the moderator, and I mentioned this already, but the moderator just does such a good job.
In Michigan.
In Michigan
moderator? Yeah. Okay. Brian Baxt is the moderator, I believe, in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm. Less excited about him, to be honest, but I'm sure he's a nice guy.
He is a nice guy, and he's been covering things at the Capitol for a long time before he became the, Politics Friday guy.
All right.
With this, so many people have questions about affordability. So one thing we hear.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's how you listen to it? Boy, you have amazing ears if you can process that speed.
Well, normally I listen to it at 2x, but when I'm going through to get clips, I listen to it at 3x.
Yeah. And we hear about from people, what are they doing in Washington to make sure that life is more affordable for me? Dr. El-Sayed, what are you doing that's something that perhaps we haven't heard before in Washington that's different to keep the cost of living down?
So let me just tell you, for me, I don't take money from the corporations who are jacking up your prices in the first place. When you're bought off by...
Just immediately diving right on in. That's a direct attack. I mean, he's not pointing at Haley Stevens, but immediately. What do you want to do in the Senate? How are you going to make things more affordable? Not take money from these people. That's immediately diving right on in.
It is. The sound is not good in this studio. I can hear the echo, but yeah.
You know what's interesting? Half of this is on television, and then the second half of this, they switch to doing it direct to streaming.
Wow.
And the audio quality immediately clears up when they switch.
Interesting.
You'll hear that. But good observation.
Mm-hmm.
DTE and Blue Cross and Big Pharma and Big Tech and AIPAC, don't be surprised that there's a pro quo that comes with that quid. That money doesn't just fall off trees. $60 million from outside organizations in this race didn't just come from nowhere. It's because those exact same organizations expect something on the other side, and that's that they get to expect to own your next U.S. senator. So it starts with being able to say, I'm the only candidate in this race who doesn't take any money from corporations. Never have, never will. And then from there, I actually can stand up to them. I can do things like enforce our antitrust policies that haven't been enforced. I can do things like tax billionaires their wealth so we can take that money and invest it in you and your kids, in your schools. I can do things like make sure that rather than sending your money somewhere else to drop bombs on other people and their kids, we can keep that money here at home. And just in case you don't believe me, just think about this. Just last week, our friend here voted to send $3.3 billion of your tax dollars to a foreign government. That is the pro quo that comes with the quid of $30 million spent by AIPAC. So it really comes down to how are you funded?
Right off the bat there.
Yeah, I think that's a solid response. He needs to work on his body language. I mean, you can tell he's, green at doing some of this. If he had a consultant, I'm sure.
I don't know if I agree with you there,
Oh,
but
well,
okay.
just when you've been on that side as a candidate, you'll get lots of advice about how what you say, your body language, how you deliver it. And that's exactly what a political consultant would tell him, is that he needs to strengthen his body language and his eye contact with the camera, etc. But I think the content of what he said was good. His response to that question is good.
Well, his response is excellent. I don't know. I don't know if I agree about body language stuff. I didn't notice anything bad, but I'm also not one of those consultants. So let's move ahead, because I just want to point out how he's repositioning questions in order to get at this narrative. So he sets up the narrative from question number 1. My opponent takes all this money, therefore there's a quo for the quid. The money is the quid. She's doing a pro quo, and this is just going to keep coming back. And so the moderator gets into this immediately and says, all right, well, let's ask where the money is coming from. So Haley Stevens, I'm skipping all of her answers because it's all platitudes and it's really uninformative. And
does she admit to taking the money? Does she admit to taking
No, she just redirects to saying, "Oh, I'm the only candidate here who's actually going to do the work. I'm going to get down dirty and do the work." And that's over and over and over again. And see, she sometimes accuses of Abdul al-Sayed of being wealthy and a celebrity. Those are her. That's it. That's all she's got. She knows she's dead to rights. But part of it is because he's putting her in that box and she can't figure out a way to get out of it. I think when we compare with Minnesota, I will show a little bit of Angie Craig talking. I think Angie Craig is a better politician than Haley Stevens. She's smarter, I think. Mm-hmm. And also, Peggy Flanagan isn't putting Angie Craig into a box in the same way that Abdul al-Sayed is putting Stevens in one. So here's the next one. So this is a question about where money is coming from.
I'm asking you the same question. Any money from anyone that we don't know about?
No and never, but then $40,000 in direct receipts to her campaign from DTE's corporate PAC. And then there's, I don't know, Center for Democratic Priorities, which released its funders, but then they're behind these shell organizations, these 501c4s. So I'd really like to revisit that question, because I don't know how to explain $40,000 directly to her campaign from DTE. I'm the only candidate in this race who's never touched a dime of corporate PAC money.
I do want to ask.
So once again, and it doesn't matter what the topic is, he keeps bringing it back to this central narrative. And this central narrative is just, it's hitting. It's absolutely hitting. And by the way, his eye contact is on the moderator, not on the camera. Mm-hmm. He's talking to the moderator. He's probably instructed to do that by the channel. Let's see.
Well, where is Haley Stevens looking? Is she looking direct to camera to talk to the people, the audience?
Yeah, she's looking directly to camera.
Yeah.
I don't know. Mm-hmm. But maybe it's my own proclivities, but I prefer it when they look at the moderator rather than looking straight at me on the camera, which they're both doing here. So obviously the Middle East is going to come up. This is a huge issue in this race. It's a huge issue in every race, in every one of these primaries. And so here they dive right in.
How do you see yourself moving forward, should you become a senator here, handling the situation with Iran, Israel, and Hamas?
So I just want to say the difference between us is $46 million of AIPAC.
Sorry, I do want to pause just because the question was, how do you see yourself moving forward with Iran, which is a country, Israel, which is a country, and Hamas, which is a political party? It's like it's not quite equivalent there. So that is problematic, and it's a badly worded question.
So I just want to say the difference between us is $46 million of AIPAC spending. They've set a record in this race to help elect my opponent because they know that she'll be a reliable vote, just like she took last week to send your tax dollars to a foreign government that is aiding, arming, and abetting the very people who want to foreclose on the possibility of Palestinian self-determination. Look, at the end of the day, my job is to take care of you here. I want to be your U.S. Senator. I want your tax dollars spent in Michigan to provide schools in Michigan, to build healthcare in Michigan, to build roads in Michigan. And I think that money sent over there to kill kids and women is the worst use of our tax dollars. And yet, that's exactly what $46 million in spending will buy you. And I believe deeply that we have a responsibility to make sure that we don't make other people's problems worse. So I believe in equal rights to peace, dignity, and self-determination for Palestinians and Jewish Israelis alike. I believe that we should not be fighting stupid wars that AIPAC wants us to fight in the first place. And I believe we have a responsibility to keep our money here, to invest here. That really is the difference. We're being outspent in this race 12-1. Chances are you're going to see an ad, probably 2 of them, on behalf of AIPAC for my opponent in the next commercial break. That's what that buys you, lying about a record around President Obama's endorsement or lying about me and my character. But that's exactly what happens when you stand up and say, maybe Palestinians should have rights too, and maybe we should have rights to our tax dollars here at home.
Dr. El-Sayed, I'm going to...
It was strange that they did those cutaways to this really small audience who are possibly employees of the station, I don't know, or the candidates. And then they did a wide shot on him and Haley Stevens rather than putting them direct in the frame, which was strange. But he doesn't even answer the question right away, which is good. He's getting out his narrative, like you said, and his message, what he wants voters to know right away. What are the most important things voters need to know? And he knows he has very limited time to do that. So he's going to be probably taking every opportunity to get his narrative out there and then possibly answer the question of the moderator.
Right. Yeah, no, it's fair to say that he didn't directly say, here's my, 10-point plan to deal with Iran, Israel, and Hamas. Again, poorly worded question. But it's just spot on. Hey, first off, you can't have a good answer to that question if you're taking money from people that have a dog in the fight. And she's taking $40 million from a people that have a dog in the fight. But I want all this money coming back home to Michigan. And wherever you're running, if you're a candidate, you can say the same exact thing if you have an opponent similar to Haley Stevens. It's an easy message to land. And he repeats it over and over and over again. Notice the pattern. It's constantly going back to who's funding my opponent and how can you expect her to deliver for Michigan when she's being paid not to. That's the message. That's the narrative over and over and over again.
But at some point, you might lose voters if you keep repeating yourself, saying the same thing 5 times, and not giving out more reasons of why you're running or your own platform. It may backfire. Honestly, this is all they're hearing is that she's not taking money literally. I mean, they're spending money to get her elected. They're spending money on commercials. They're not writing her a check of $40 million.
Which people are getting bombarded and inundated with, which I think is far more likely to backfire than him bringing up over and over in a campaign. But keep in mind, I'm only showing clips where he's doing the attack. Right.
But I'm also saying you also have to give them reasons to vote for you. And against Haley,
and he does,
and
he does a lot of that. And I think he just did in this question by saying, "Hey, I'm here to bring, money back home to Michigan. We shouldn't be sending this money overseas. So how do I solve the, Israel-Hamas problem? By getting that money and bringing it back home to schools in Michigan and all that stuff." So I think he did precisely that in this question anyways. He attacked her and then immediately pivoted back to what he can do or what he wants to do in the Senate. So I don't think he's missing the mark on that. And the next one, now there have been kind of weird attacks in this race. And so the moderator is going to be asking about that. So this is kind of in the context of talking about decency and kindness that's lacking in this campaign.
But when we talk about unkindness, I also just want to speak to the fact that on behalf of my opponent, UDP, another name for AIPAC, has been running attack ad after attack ad after attack ad on my character. I'm the father of 2 daughters. I'm raising them to be stronger than any man. My wife is a doctor. My mother was the first tenured professor of engineering at her university. I was raised by strong women. To say that somehow, because I wrote an op-ed 15 years ago about First Lady Michelle Obama, or I ran against Governor Whitmer, that somehow I'm disrespecting anybody is just inconsistent with the truth. So I really think it's important for my opponent to speak to why she thinks it's okay to spend $10 million of AIPAC money coming after my character. I'd love to understand that, because I went on Twitter and I said that those comments are unkind. I'd like to see the same thing.
Congresswoman, we're going to get to some.
Right back to the money.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about the money. I mean, he's just really good at staying on task. Really good. The civility talk comes back later. I'm going to push ahead.
Effort to talk about civility, I just took another attack. And I just want you to ask yourself, what is it that you deserve from your politics now? Do you deserve a politician more focused on their opponent because they want to be in a seat? Or do you deserve a politics where we're all asking, how do we actually serve you best? Because that's what I'm focused on here in this debate and been focused on for this entire 15-month campaign that we've been running on.
Well,
it's as though he heard your advice.
Mm-hmm. But in the previous comment, when he's responding, comms experts will tell you, don't repeat your attacks. Like, don't say why they're attacking you. Don't repeat their message. He did. He said they're attacking me for these because I ran against Gretchen Whitmer and blah, blah, blah.
I think probably because she just mentioned it.
Okay. But usually, I mean, they shouldn't repeat it, because especially if she just mentioned it, he didn't need to say it out loud.
Well, I think she attacked him for being, against women or something, and so he had to clarify what this is all about. I mean, that's the nastiness of this campaign. I mean, AIPAC is spending all this money. By the way, when AIPAC spends money, it's not ads supporting Israel. They never mention Israel in the ads they run. Like, the money AIPAC is spending is to say that Abdul El-Sayed is sexist for writing a column critical of a program that Michelle Obama wanted to do. I mean,
because they know those are effective ads. That's why they're framing it that way.
but also because they don't want people knowing that AIPAC's behind them.
Right.
That's why they're using UDP and
the other reason why Abdul El-Sayed is using this opportunity is because he doesn't have the money to run as many ads.
No,
close. Or organizations running attack ads on his opponent. So he's taking this opportunity to set the record straight and explain why these attacks are occurring.
I think, like I said, I think this is a blueprint for people in this same situation. There's a couple more from this. Because you asked about substance, let me show you a really substantive one that at the very end, he brings back around to his narrative. I mean, he's just very, very good at this. And it is fun to watch. We might be in the second half now where the sound gets better. 226, there we go.
Dr. El-Sayed, I'll begin with you. What is the number one thing Senate Democrats are failing to do right now that you would do differently?
Well, number one, I just think the filibuster itself is anti-democratic. And we had an opportunity to break the filibuster. Now, let me just talk about what the filibuster is. The filibuster is the process by which all of the Senate can hide behind one senator who wants to filibuster, which requires a 60-vote threshold to break. And that means that you need 60 votes to pass something when it really should just be the majority number of votes. I oppose the filibuster. I think the filibuster has been anti-democratic for a lot of reasons. And once you get past that, we have the opportunity to get money out of politics to take on Citizens United. We have the opportunity to put money back in pockets by doing things like passing the PRO Act to stand with unions like the UAW who've endorsed us. We have the opportunity to start changing and enforcing our antitrust policies so a few corporations can't pick your pocket at every turn. We have the opportunity to tax billionaires their wealth. And we have the opportunity to finally guarantee every single person in this country healthcare through Medicare for all. But we've got to get the democracy part of it right. And right now, the biggest risks to our democracy are the filibuster, it's anti-democratic at the Senate, and money in politics. The attack ads that you've seen probably in the last commercial break itself that change our political system. When you ask $60 million to come into a race for you and then say that somehow you're electable, I think you don't quite understand what electability means. If you need a $60 million crutch, you probably can't be elected on your own terms. So I would just say that you should probably, if you really want to beat Mike Rogers, find the candidate who is electable without having to ask for a $60 million crutch to do it.
Congresswoman?
Wow, that's pretty good. But I will say it's interesting he picked up talking about the filibuster because Trump also wants to get rid of the filibuster in the Senate. So he's aligning himself with Trump on ending the filibuster. I don't think I would not have picked that as a
I think all Democrats should support. You don't?
No,
Oh.
I mean, I wouldn't have picked that thing to talk about filibuster.
Oh,
Definitely
I
money
love
in
it.
campaigns. Money in campaigns fits his narrative.
Right.
You need to fix that
he's
first.
Tying the,
But I
he's
would
tying the
say,
filibuster
I would want to talk about things that people connect with right away, like affordability, the economy. You know what I mean? Like I'm going to go help you make your life better. But people aren't saying, my life would be better if we got rid of the filibuster. This is not how people think.
No, it's not. But he used that. Here's why he basically laid out a very clear, understandable reason why the filibuster is preventing all these things from happening.
Yeah, but he could have used that time to do something that I think connects deeper.
You don't think he connected
people.
With that answer?
No,
with that
not if you have to
explain.
If you have to explain something, take that much time. You have a limited amount of time. He's got a national audience right now. You don't need to don't talk about the filibuster and explain it. Because
he could filibuster, Jen.
He said this is what a filibuster is, and then he took time to explain it. So I would say that would have been time better spent talking about something else.
Okay,
just my opinion.
Yeah, fair enough. But as far as like why to do it, I mean, just as a matter of interest, I mean, Ben Wickler's new book, that's his first step too. Is like, how do we reclaim democracy? I mean, he just put out the book. He's been on the interview circuit as well. So for those who don't know, Ben Wickler is the former head of the Democratic Party in Wisconsin. And he was the primary opponent to Ken Martin for taking the chairmanship of the Democratic National Committee. He obviously lost to Ken Martin. And a lot of people are like, what if Ben Wickler had won? But yeah, Wickler's first step is getting rid of the filibuster also. So it's not an unheard of argument, and I think it's strong because it's substantive. You were just saying, oh, he's not substantive enough. Then he gets substantive.
But it's not the list of the top 3 priorities for people why they vote. It is not end the filibuster. Maybe for a couple people.
Well, the question is, what is the number one thing Senate Democrats are failing to do right now? And I think that is the number one thing. I personally believe that is the correct answer to that question.
Senate Democrats are failing to do? They're in the minority right now.
Well, but yeah, when they had the majority, I'm saying when they had the majority under,
right, but they appreciate the filibuster. In the minority, you appreciate the filibuster because it prevents the Republicans from doing really god awful things.
But that's such a lame argument, though.
No, but I'm just saying that's right now how the Democrats, it's in their favor in the minority right now.
I disagree. I really disagree, and here's why I disagree.
Let's have a whole nother episode on the filibuster.
Okay,
let's talk about the debate right now.
Yeah. Alrighty. Okay, so then ICE funding, because just like Angie Craig in Minnesota, she voted for funding ICE, for the Lake and Riley Act, and for thanking ICE. All that
thank you.
stuff.
Dr. El-Sayed, you heard Congresswoman Stevens there say, essentially, strip away some of the funding for ICE. Is that not good enough?
Well, she's also voted to raise ICE funding 4 times. That's the part that you didn't hear. 4 times voted to raise ICE funding. Voted to thank ICE, in fact. So this is the same kind of D.C. hypocrisy, I hate to say it, that we often see. Say one thing in front of a camera, do another thing. I said.
That's good that he repeats himself and he says it a couple times because people that's important to do because people aren't very good listening anymore. So I think that was a good response.
Yeah, it's
And
a
that
lot of
Peggy
a lot of
Flanagan is
bars
also
here.
using the Lake and Riley Act against her opponent.
Yep. Oh, for sure. Which she absolutely should. I think Peggy Flanagan should be doing more of what we're seeing right now. That's why I wanted to do Michigan first, is because this is just clear, effective narrative building constantly. So it's extreme. Like, people are going to remember when they leave all this stuff. Obviously, I'm putting all the attacks together, but it's every single question he pivots. And there were other smaller ones that I'm not including here. So this is around, so her kind of big attack on him is that he used to have a podcast and that he's kind of like a celebrity, whereas she's the hard worker who gets things done in the background. And so this is his response to that kind of odd, like, that's the attack Republicans used against Obama. You're the celebrity.
Now she just really, you can listen to the podcast. It's there. Congresswoman, if you enjoy podcasts about public health, I welcome you to take a listen. You seem very concerned about that. I'm more concerned about the fact that people can't pay for their gas. They can't pay for their groceries. We're fighting a war that's cost us billions of dollars that has been pushed by the government of a foreign country, the same foreign country that the folks paying for your ads want us to send billions of dollars to. And that's the thing that I think Michiganders really want to understand. They're not that worried about the fact that I hosted a podcast. They're worried about the fact that right now, for a lot of folks, their kids go to schools that are unbecoming of their future. They are worried about the fact that they can't gas up their car because it costs, $4.50 a gallon? They're worried about the fact that the same corporations who funded your campaign are raising rates on the things that they can't go without, like their power. So I'd really like us to focus on the things that actually matter, which have nothing to do with the podcast, have everything to do with the future of Michiganders that we would like to serve.
Yeah, but so he's doing a podcast on public health. Podcasts are a lot of work, and public health needs more podcasts. We need to educate people. He should have said it's a value. People benefit from my podcast, So that is a very weak argument by Haley Stevens.
Yeah, she's also arguing that podcasts make you a celebrity, which, well, Jen,
I had never heard of Abdul. I have never heard of Abdul al-Sayed until he ran for this office. So he wasn't that big of a celebrity.
No, a podcast did not make him a celebrity. Even writing the book Medicare for All with the foreword by Bernie Sanders did not make him a celebrity. Right. But that's why, her arguments are just so like fall flattish. It's really, so just a couple more things, because even he took her attack on him and then turned it right back around once again. Really solid stuff here.
In your life.
But not
I'd love to talk about transparency. I really would. Because I want you to ask yourself, there is this group called the Center for Democratic Priorities. They didn't exist until they popped up and started running ads for my opponent. And then there's this other group called Center Forward that paid for a flight for the Congresswoman and her mother to go to Portugal. And they just released their donors. And then it's a whole bunch of shell 501c4 organizations. They're the folks who are literally putting money in our pockets right now to try and mis and disinform us about this race. And here's the thing about it. None of it actually makes your life better. Think about the $60 million that got spent in this race. What could $60 million do for a community in Detroit? What could $60 million mean for erasing medical debt? I'll tell you, $6 billion it could erase. But they want to spend it to get the Congresswoman elected. Why? Because at the end of the day, they know that they're going to have a safe seat doing their bidding instead of yours. Every single dollar that DTE is spending is a down payment on knowing that they can raise your rates. Every single dollar that Blue Cross Blue Shield spends in this race is a down payment on raising your premium.
All right.
Every single.
Her mic is on when he's talking because I can hear her sniffling.
Yes,
She's interrupting. I can hear her speaking at the beginning of his question. So I don't know if she's almost interrupting or if that happened in the debate, but
it's a little bit of crosstalk,
Yeah.
But, well, yeah, because she's trying to land an attack and then she kind of pitches her attack. It doesn't go so well. The moderator shifts over to Abdul al-Sayed and she realizes she might add some more, but it's too late, kind of a thing.
Okay.
But yeah, her attack here, if you couldn't tell, was she thinks he's not being transparent with his personal finances because he married rich. His wife is wealthy, and so they didn't release their financials. Unfortunately for her, he released them like the day of or the day before this debate. And there's nothing interesting in them. There's nothing
His wife,
particularly
he said his
of
wife's
note.
a doctor. Is that what he said?
Yeah, but her
A
family
medical
has
doctor?
wealth.
Okay.
Like they have like real estate around the world and stuff like that. So, I mean, they got money. But anyways,
Now
the
that
point.
could be effective. That actually could be effective. We'll see. We'll see if that's what she's saying. Maybe she'll lean on that more.
Well, she's been saying, oh, you refuse to release your tax returns. You refuse to release your financials. Well, he did just release his financials before this debate. So that attack kind of went away. And now she's got nothing again.
So he and his wife don't have the wealth. It's her family that has the wealth. Her parents, grandparents.
I don't know I don't know all the details, and I don't really care. But I mean, if you think that's a place that Haley Stevens might go.
If you have nothing else, it's like that. I guess she's going to try everything she has.
That's the thing. So now they're going to touch on, and this is interesting because this happened in the Minnesota debate as well, where they talk about the air quality and the fires and stuff. Well, in Michigan, it's not about the fires as much as about the air quality. And here, once again, he uses an opportunity to reinforce his narrative.
Dr. El-Sayed, clean air. Tomorrow, just be careful. If you become a broadcast personality, somebody might come after you. I just want to speak specifically to your question. I can tell you about what we've already done. We put air quality monitors all over Wayne County so folks can get real-time information about the air that they're breathing. Took on some of the biggest corporate polluters in our state when I was in the city of Detroit. Took on Marathon Petroleum, the biggest polluter and the most polluted zip code in the state, forced them to invest their own money to reduce emissions when they had wanted to increase them. The truth of the matter is that these wildfires are happening more often because it's drier and hotter than it has been in the past. It's drier and hotter because we continue to rely on fossil fuels for our energy. We need to get to 100% renewable energy. And the only way we're going to do that is by taking the Chevrons and the Exxons of the world out of our politics. Now, guess whose campaign they supported? Well, if you guessed my Congresswoman colleague, you probably guessed right, because yes, they have both given to that campaign. So when you hear ideas of things that ought to be done, but they never actually get done, you should ask yourself why it doesn't get done. Well, because the people who sell oil in this country fund the politicians who make sure that they can keep selling oil.
Same answer as he did a video about this on Twitter X.
We showed that. Yep.
Same answer.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Very effective. I mean, he answers the question. He says, here's what I've done as a public health official. Here's how we've been monitoring our air. How do we fix it? Well, by getting this insane money from these fossil fuel companies out of our politics. And by the way, so you'll see Peggy has a similar, though obviously less effective. I just think Abdul El-Sayed is extremely effective with these attacks. And it's not that easy to do. I mean, it's not the most simple thing in the world. Here's the last clip from this debate before we turn to Minnesota. Got to get it to the right spot. There we go. This is about the electability argument. So Haley Stevens' whole argument here, as we've talked about ad nauseum, is I'm more electable than Abdul El-Sayed. Well, here's his response to that. And once again, money is going to play a role in his response.
30 seconds left for each of you to answer the following question. What makes you think you're the formidable candidate who can take on Mike Rogers? 30 seconds, Dr. El-Sayed.
Well, poll after poll after poll has shown, despite what my colleague says, that I am the most competitive candidate to take on Mike Rogers. But it's also this, that you've got to have something you're fighting for. Ask yourself, if DTE funds both Mike Rogers and Haley Stevens, who wins? DTE wins. And Blue Cross and Big Pharma and Big Tech and AIPAC, all funded by the same people. We need a choice. I'm the only candidate in this race who does not take corporate money. And so I offer a real contrast to a guy who has never seen a corporate dollar he did not want.
Congresswoman Haley Stevens.
That was a good way to end it. Wrap it all up. Same message, same narrative.
Same message.
And I noticed Haley Stevens was smiling a lot. Some advisors said you need to smile a lot. I would be interested in seeing if there was focus groups and what their response was to each
There
candidate.
was this post-debate reaction room thing here that I did not watch. So we would be doing
interesting to
that.
see. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll check it out. And if there's any little tidbits, I can set them aside for next time. But now let's do some compare and contrast. So in Minnesota, we got Peggy Flanagan here in the green on the right, and then Angie Craig with the speaker thingy over her mouth on the left. NPR, Minnesota Public Radio, chose these photographs of them looking very serious. I guess that's appropriate. So it took a while, quite a while, before we get our first Peggy landing a blow. In my opinion, too long. So Peggy's not doing the same thing. She's not using this same kind of narrative structure to inform her whole campaign. As in,
she's being Minnesota nice. I mean, at the end of the day, whoever wins has to support the other person against the Republican. And they said that they would in this debate, that whoever loses the primary will make sure that they are supportive.
That's fine, but you got to win. I mean, it's more important that Peggy win. Now, I think she's going to win.
They don't want to be enemies.
Regardless of this, regardless of, what happens here, I don't think this debate is going to loom very large in this race. It's not as closely watched. It's not nationally in the spotlight. I don't think most people are ever going to hear or see even bits of this debate, whereas the Abdul El-Sayed debate is getting covered by national news. This one is not. So the vast majority of people in Minnesota voters are not going to see this. So the critiques I'm going to have here are not, particularly, whatever. But so what if they have to support each other? The narrative is correct. It should be, Peggy could run the exact same narrative because it's true that Abdul El-Sayed is running.
She says it. She just doesn't repeat it with every question.
Correct. And when she says it, it's not a big moment that lands. It's, and by the way, it's so it's Minnesota nice, but Michigan people say Michigan nice. I mean, it's just, that's
here's the thing, you have to
say.
Be careful. I mean, people listening to this, they don't want to hire someone who's always just attacking. They want to elect also a nice person. So they can backfire if you do that too much, and especially for women, if women go on the attack. But I don't know, let's play a clip and let's react to that.
Fair enough, but keep in mind that Flanagan is dealing with the same avalanche of negative ads that Abdul El-Sayed. It's not the same to the same degree as in the same amount of money, but it's the same disparity in money, and it's nasty. And so fight back. I don't know. I'm not going to weigh in on the gender portion of it, but here's her first. So this is on the prediction markets, which you brought up earlier. So the Kelshi and the poly market thing in Minnesota.
Clear that Minnesotans don't support prediction markets. Clearly, we banned this past legislative session. They are attacking us for it. They've taken us to court. But I think that this is one of the places where there's some pretty significant contrast between myself and Congresswoman Craig. The founders of Kelshi have contributed to her campaign. They have their preferred candidate in this race. And while she just talked about the head of the Indian Gaming Association coming and testifying, ultimately what these prediction markets, Polymarket, Kelshi, and others would like to do is to undermine Indian gaming overall. I think that's great risk, not just for Indian country and for tribes as a whole, but for Minnesota, for local economies as well. These enterprises are important, they're significant, and predictive markets have their candidate in this race, and it's Congresswoman Angie Craig.
Representative Craig, you want?
I thought that was a solid response.
I mean, I agree it's a solid response.
Are prediction markets that unpopular? I don't know. This is an interesting question, but there's a lot of, I think, young men who
are getting bankrupted by them.
Yes, most people lose money on that. We should 98% of the people that make bets on the prediction markets don't really know arbitrage or how to hedge their bets, and they lose a lot of money.
If you throw in addition to the, Kelshi and Polymarket's harder to use because you have to offshore your money first. But if you then add in the online betting like DraftKings and FanDuel and these others, huge numbers of young men are being bankrupted by them, and they're noticing. Yeah, the popularity of these things is super high, but also the recognition now more and more among the target community, they're recognizing how harmful these are. So yeah, a lot of people don't like these things. And for people watching, I mean, they bring up Indian gaming. That's a huge issue in Minnesota. That's how pretty much all of the tribes in Minnesota like make the bulk of their money is through casinos and gaming. And without that financial lifeline, a lot of the money these tribes have dries up. And in fact, the whole, Trump pissing off Canada thing has hurt a lot of the tribes in northern Minnesota, where a lot of Canadian tourists will come down and play at those casinos. So, this Trump administration is having massive effects through all levels of life, through even, an Indian tribe in, rural northern Minnesota is being affected directly by this Trump nonsense. And so that's why that's important. But Flanagan saying, oh, well, I think here is a point of disagreement between my opponent and I. That's that Minnesota nice thing. That is so, like, you think? Really, you think? I mean, do you like that? I mean, Jen, you think that's like a good...
Well, we'll find out if that's effective. But you're right. This debate is not going to probably change anyone how they're going to vote. Is it going to inform people that don't know either one? Maybe, on their issues. But they agree on a lot of these topics. There's only a few where there's some disagreement. One is, I don't know if you're going to play the clip, but one is on healthcare. Angie Craig supports a public option, and Peggy Flanagan supports a public option that competes with private health plans, and Peggy Flanagan supports Medicare for all. That's a big difference in these candidates.
That's a huge difference. Yes, I do have that clip lined up. But also, I mean, well, here's the thing, Jen. Haley Stevens wanted that same narrative to happen with the previous debate, where they were basically agreeing on everything. She's like, yeah, well, I want these things too, and I'm going to fight for them, and I know how to fight for them. That was her argument. But remember, I said that Abdul El-Sayed was putting her in a box with this criticism. It doesn't matter if you agree to these issues. You're being paid by these corporations to walk a very different walk than you're talking. And that is the argument against Angie Craig, that Peggy Flanagan simply doesn't land very well here. And I'm concerned about that. I think she should be landing. Now, I think she's going to win. I don't think it's going to be that close, so maybe I shouldn't be too concerned about it. But in races like this, especially where money is pouring in for Angie Craig, I think Peggy Flanagan should be more demonstrative in this narrative. It's like, yeah, you might agree with me, but what you're going to actually do, I mean, there's going to have to be quo for this enormous amount of quid you're getting. And it's such a good argument, and she should be using it every step of the way.
She has been. I know I saw her on public television, and she used the argument, and they're both on the same sofa right next to each other. And I think she went on more the attack. But I will tell you that this audience is highly educated audience, those folks that listen to public radio or public television. So saying it over and over and over, you may not need to do that same type of communication that Abdul El-Sayed used in Michigan when he had this statewide audience on a news channel. This is a little bit different. So maybe Peggy was also trying to say, hey, we agree on a lot of these topics. We have similar positions. So if you have two people with very similar positions, one's being paid by corporate PACs and one's not, who are you going to vote for? I think that's the difference she's trying to make.
But she needs to drive that message home. I don't care how educated the audience is. I mean, a lot of people are going to be listening to this while they're driving, while they're distracted, while they're doing other things. And frankly, a lot of this is about clipping, like what we're doing right now. That's what most of this is for, or it should be for. You shouldn't be thinking, who is the audience that's listening to this at 11 a.m. on a Monday morning or 9 p.m. the following evening? I don't think that's what you should be thinking. I think you should be thinking, what is the message I want clipped out of here over and over and over again? And that's where I think strategy-wise, in a debate, you need to just be crystal clear And I don't think this is crystal clear. So that first attack, if you want to call it an attack, or as she says, I think we have a disagreement here, was over 6 minutes in. We don't get another one until 16 minutes in. So 10 minutes later is when she lands her second attack. It's just incredible to have that much time go by. So it's not a narrative for her. It should be, but it isn't. But here's the next one. So this is about arms sales to Israel and AIPAC funding, which of course, Angie Craig just voted for that bill to send $3.3 billion more for weapons for Israel.
We need a new one.
Arms sales to Israel.
Well, I think it's interesting because you just asked Congresswoman Craig if she supports additional arms sales. She didn't necessarily answer the question. And I think her vote last week speaks for itself. She voted for additional $3.3 billion to be sent to Benjamin Netanyahu and was the only Minnesota Democrat to do so. Congresswoman Craig.
I'm sorry, Jen. She voted for that money to be sent to Israel, not just to Benjamin Netanyahu. I don't like this framing, and I don't think it's good, but fair enough, I suppose.
Has a track record of supporting Benjamin Netanyahu and his agenda. She, again, was the only Minnesota Democrat to send 2,000-pound bombs to Netanyahu, and has had an incredible amount of support from AIPAC. They've been her biggest funder throughout her entire political career. My values do not align with AIPAC. I'm not taking their money, and I think that this matters when it comes to how we engage in foreign policy.
I'm going to let.
It's so soft.
It is soft. And I think Angie Craig has more years of running difficult races. She's learned, and she's gotten really good at answering questions and being concise and firm and not saying at all. And Peggy Flanagan, you can see that this is, besides running for lieutenant governor, which she's on the same ticket with Governor Walz, she was.
Mm-hmm.
She had to run for a Minnesota House seat, which she held for one term. Might have been a special election, I don't recall. But this is her real solo campaign. And you can see that a little bit of, being green coming across in how she answers the questions, how she's not as aggressive, how she holds back a little bit.
Right.
So I guess that's true. That's true. And she needs to be stronger in her response and get rid of the being more concise.
Right. And stop saying, oh, well, I think that answer is interesting because, my opponent, did one thing and said, just attack, just say what the truth is. Don't couch it with interesting and use all these filler words. Also, the money was to be sent to Israel, not to Bibi Netanyahu. Yeah, he's the current prime minister, but, his opponents in Israel are their main campaign argument against him is that he's not crazy enough. So,
I know, but I don't think she wants to loop every person living in Israel. They're not. A lot of people living in Israel don't support. Yes, the government of Israel, and she's saying Bibi Netanyahu.
I know. I think that's terrible framing.
I think she wants to differentiate between.
I know she does.
Living in Israel that aren't supportive of this.
They're hugely supportive of it, Jen. If you look at polling, the population of Israel is hugely supportive. And the younger you are in Israel, the more supportive of it you are. It's the opposite of the United States, where the younger generation is moving more to the left, the younger generation and Israel is moving more to the right. It's just getting more and more and more.
I think the average person is not going to, I wouldn't worry about that difference in this debate and how it comes across to the average.
Fine, maybe in this debate, but the point is, it's the reason I'm concerned about it, just as a general matter, maybe not for this particular moment, is because it's backing off a full-throated condemnation of what's actually going on. This isn't Bibi Netanyahu is not the sole orchestrator of this genocide. And by the way, that's a issue later in this debate where Peggy Flanagan, uses the word genocide, and Angie Craig says, "Oh, I don't think terminology is helpful here," which is God.
Mm.
But anyways, here's the next one. So this is good. And Peggy gets a question about Saudi Arabia and the nuclear weapons to Saudi Arabia thing, and she immediately diverts it back to Angie Craig. And then I'm going to actually keep this going so we hear a little bit of Angie Craig's response, because I think it's telling, and we'll have things to say about it.
Governor Flanagan, we're going to stay with the Middle East for another minute or so. We learned last week that the Trump administration is exploring a nuclear development deal with Saudi Arabia. Are you on board with that?
I am not on board with that. But if I can just come back to the last question, I think it's important to acknowledge, of course, what happened on October 7th was horrific. Hamas is a terrorist organization. And, the response, though, over the last few years, 21,000 children.
But I'm glad she gets into this, but the October 7th, thing is horrible and all that kind of stuff. I didn't
This
play
is what
it.
politicians do.
No, I know. I didn't
This
play
is
it.
what they used to say. I mean, I don't think they're doing this
Used to.
anymore. I
Right.
know. I think this is
something I didn't
old
play
frame.
this. There was a section of that Adam Smith interview that I didn't play that I wanted to eventually get to. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. But one thing he said in that was that everybody forgets October 7th. He said that. It's like, oh my God. It's like you can't, take a step in this conversation without somebody saying, but October 7th, but Hamas. And when this first went on, that was the only thing. Like when I got into conversations with people about this, it was but Hamas or but October 7th. It's like nobody's forgotten it. People bring it up all the time. And this is that kind of residue of that. But I think most Americans kind of understand the nature of where things have gone. Certainly most Americans in the Democratic Party. But I just wanted to point that out.
Well,
Sorry.
when you're running as a candidate and you're an elected official, you get criticism from every side, everybody. And so what you say matters. And if you don't say it, something that you should have said, you'll get criticized for not saying something. So Peggy and other electeds and candidates will try to make sure that they're saying everything so they're not getting criticized from everyone. She is trying to get as many votes as possible in the primary.
Right.
This is probably why she says that type of frame, uses that type of frame, talks about October 7th.
Right. I just don't think it has the salience that it had 2 years ago. I just don't.
And she won't say it in the general, but let's see what she says here.
Yeah, we'll keep going.
Terrorist organization. And, the response, though, over the last few years, 21,000 children in Gaza have been killed. The UN report that came out at the end of June talks specifically about Palestinian children, infants, being targeted. This is a genocide. I think it's important for us to use that language and to be clear that I think it's a vote to support additional military support to Israel puts all of us at risk, and I think really misses the moment where Minnesotans are and Americans as a whole. Our taxpayer dollars should not pay for additional weapons, bombs, as the entire communities have been leveled and children and families are suffering.
Representative Craig, can you respond to that? And also the Saudi Arabia question.
No, I don't agree with the president, as you would imagine. But the lieutenant governor is sort of missing the nuance of foreign policy. It is atrocious that Palestinians have died and too many civilians died in the war in Gaza. And of course, October 7th was horrific, but we need to have.
But. Oh my, it's horrific that civilians died, but she's not nuanced enough. How nuanced? I mean, it's a genocide. What nuance do you want, Angie? What nuance do you want? I mean, it's psychotic. I don't know. I can't with that crap. I don't think that nuance shit is going to connect with anybody, and she's underwater in this race.
She's also saying and I mean, I'm going to, they need to stop saying And you know what? Peggy can say the same thing in fewer words and be more direct, like Abdul al-Sayed.
Yep.
They're putting too many fillers in there, so you're not getting from A to B. You're doing like A and going backwards to get to B. I mean, you got to be more direct and concise and not put so many filler words in there.
Thank you. I agree. Just answer the question, attack your opponent, and then say what you're going to do. It's like Abdul. Every question was, all right, let me redirect this into my framing, my narrative. Maybe it's because they don't have
Maybe it's because they don't have a time limit. They're trying to fill up space so they don't get a tougher question. Sometimes electeds or candidates.
Well, they didn't have a. I mean, they kind of had a time limit, but in the other debate, in the Michigan debate, the guy specifically said, "Oh, I don't want this to be a time debate." And then, of course, he said 20 seconds every now and again. But
okay.
But yeah, he wanted that to be more of a conversation. But I think part of it is like that NPR thing where it's like, yeah, let's talk softly and let's be all, I think there's a NPR-ness of it. Being in that studio and being in that environment just kind of draws out that softness and,
maybe,
ridiculous. And the moderator here seems to, like, when they finally start getting to the meat and potatoes in this campaign, he quickly moves them away from it. He's doing the opposite of what a good moderator. He's looking for points of agreement and points where it won't get uncomfortable. And he's moving every time it starts getting uncomfortable.
We also don't know what they pre-negotiated to agree to this debate, so we have no idea.
That's true. But the fact, this moderator keeps moving away from the juicy bits.
Well, do we have another clip? Because I want to talk about, I want to talk about something else when we wrap this up.
Yeah.
Related to the races.
So, so this is an Angie Craig argument that this is a weakness for Flanagan because she did send one of those papers to AIPAC, which no Democrat should ever do ever again. And this is why.
Peggy Flanagan, 20 seconds on whether you have a relationship with AIPAC.
Sure. I met with AIPAC. I met with J Street. I am endorsed by Ben the Arc. And I think it's important to know that the moment that I said that I would have, supported Bernie Sanders' resolution blocking offensive arms sales to Israel last summer, that was the moment that AIPAC decided that I was a threat. They called me a threat. And to be clear, I stand by that. And they have held over a dozen fundraisers for Congresswoman Craig this cycle. AIPAC is out of step with where Minnesotans are at, and their support for Congresswoman Craig is clear.
It's crazy that it took until last summer for AIPAC to decide that Peggy Flanagan was unacceptable.
Yeah, that's too bad that she was courting them that long. I don't think that as a candidate for 8, 10, 12 years, I did not court AIPAC.
Well, to your credit, Jen, when I was working with you on that campaign back in 2022, we were at an event that was hosted in Minneapolis that was hosted by a Jewish group, and I remember Ilhan Omar also showed up to that.
And we were there to schmooze with other people and try to get people interested in our freaking congressional race and talk to donors. That's why we were there. But there was a speaker and we got up and left. It was so bad.
While he was speaking.
We just
nope. He was basically, that was around the time where the American Palestinian journalist was assassinated by the IDF in Gaza. This was before, this was in 2022. So this was before 2023. Akle, I believe her name was her last name. And she was targeted and assassinated by an Israeli sniper. And the speaker was basically saying she had it coming. So Jen and I stood up and walked out right then and there, which, God, I would have done it whether you joined me or not, but I'm so glad you did. That was so gross. But that's the kind of stuff, I mean, and a bunch of other politicians stayed there. Ilhan Omar had left. She didn't stay for the dinner or the speakers. She probably knew about that guy and didn't want any part of it. But you know, not bad to keep an eye on what she's doing when it comes to those kind of things. All right, so this is okay. So this is the best attack Flanagan can land on Angie Craig, because this is the ICE stuff and the Lake and Riley Act and the thinking ICE thing.
Peggy Flanagan, should lawmakers be encouraged or discouraged from changing their mind as new information arises or events arise?
Well, I think the timing of this is what's really important. Congresswoman Craig stood by this vote for 14 months. During the height of Operation Metro Surge, after Renee Good was killed, after Alex Preddy was killed, she stood by her vote. And here's what I think is important. This wasn't a secret. This didn't sneak up on us. Donald Trump ran on a mass deportation agenda. It was literally in bright signs behind him at rallies in all caps that said mass deportation now. Immigration groups, the ACLU, were, raising red flags all over the place before this vote. And you can talk about standing up to Donald Trump, and that's one thing, but voting 3 days in to the second Trump administration for Donald Trump's immigration bill that allowed him to terrorize our communities, the loss of life, the economic impact, the trauma, it's horrific. And just shortly thereafter, Congresswoman Craig voted to thank ICE while they were in the streets of Los Angeles, separating families. You ask where I have been? November 16th, 2024, right after the election, I was in a meeting. I was in an organizing meeting with the immigrant community about how we were going to respond. January of 2025, I was in the parish basement of my church determining how we were going to protect our neighbors. That's where I've been.
I want to ask, though, is there a level of immigration enforcement or deportation that's acceptable to you?
Yes. I mean, we absolutely need to make sure that we have secure borders, that we are clear, that there has to be a pathway to citizenship, in particular for DACA recipients who have lived in limbo for so long. But ICE itself has to be ripped apart. We are seeing this essentially lawless entity that has killed 11 people with impunity. It is unacceptable. People are ready for real solutions, but Congresswoman's past support for ICE and for Donald Trump's immigration bill should be disqualifying.
Do you want to respond?
That's a good response. I think
that's
it's good.
Her best. That
is very good.
Far.
That is very good. She hit everything that she needed.
There was
to
only
hit.
like one That's how she's passionate about this. She needs to develop that same energy and passion for all this other stuff, because
most Democrats in Minnesota will agree with everything she said.
Yes.
Everything.
And I agree with her. Well, obviously I do. I'm obviously not supporting Angie Craig in this, but yeah, Craig's votes should be disqualifying. They should be for any Democrat. Voting for Lake and Raleigh and voting to thank ICE. Both of those votes, which she stuck by, as Flanagan said, she stuck by those during Metro Surge. She stuck by those votes and said they were appropriate until finally she apologized them long after, it was too late.
Yep.
It's just crazy. But just a couple more. But you mentioned, so the next one is the medical one so this is a clear difference between the two candidates. So there's two moments here. The first one is not about the Medicare for all. Actually, this is about the fraud stuff. Jen, do you want to set us up for? We've talked about this. This is a Republican talking point.
Well, this is where Angie Craig blames Peggy Flanagan for not doing anything about the fraud. And Peggy can't really say it. Flanagan say, well, the lieutenant governor has no power It is like an ornamental, ceremonial position. And if the governor doesn't want you around, you're just going out there and cutting ribbons and introducing people. You are not at the table making decisions. When I was a state legislator, I don't remember Peggy Flanagan being in decisions when we were negotiating bills. She wanted to be more effective. I'm sure she was telling Walz, this is what we should do as an administration. There's weaknesses here. She's not doing that publicly. She could have been disagreeing with him a lot about some of the things he did, some of the bills he vetoed potentially. She is not going to say that publicly. But this is where Angie thinks that she's weak, where she did not do anything on fraud. But most people should know, Lieutenant Governor in Minnesota, we don't need a lieutenant governor in Minnesota. They serve very little role unless something happens to the governor.
Right. But also, I want to point out that this is something that has Republicans exercise. This fraud has been dealt with in the courts for years. I mean, fraud happened, but it's been dealt with, it's being dealt with, and it has for years. The reason it's become a big political issue is because Republicans have spent a lot of money, and they've gotten, that kid, Nick Shirley here, did that thing and just created a mountain out of a molehill. In fact, Trump did the Metro Surge thing because of the supposed fraud. But if we want to talk about significant fraud in Medicare and Medicaid, it's like Republicans do it more. What about the huge...
God, no, all you do is you talk about all the freaking grift and money Trump and his cabinet and his kids are making off of American taxpayers. That's what you pivot right away to that fraud.
Yeah. So
they're making more billions than these little fraudsters. Any fraud is bad, but if you want to bring back money, taxpayer money, go after the big sharks, not the little tiny fish.
And I think that's effective. And Flanagan should be saying, hey, you're making the Republicans' argument for them. Who's doing the most fraud here? Is Donald Trump. And then if you want to talk about fraud in our Medicare system, Senator Rick Scott of Florida, his company defrauded Medicare of $400 million. And you're making a mountain out of $8 million in Minnesota. I mean, yes, it's important. Yes, but the people have been convicted over this already. And also, Angie Craig seems to think that if she's the candidate, Republicans won't attack her over the fraud. They don't care. Republicans don't care which Democrat they're running against. They're going to paint everyone with the exact same brush. It doesn't matter. This is a very, very dumb argument, but I wish Flanagan did a little bit more on this, just to kind of connect this talking point to Republicans, because Angie Craig is picking up the Republican line on this. Here it is.
Reports of the sprawling Feeding Our Future fraud scheme emerged in the first term that you served alongside Governor Tim Walz, and major Medicaid fraud has been exposed since. How much have you been involved in developing a response or defenses to combat future fraud?
Well, I would say this, this is an issue that's come up, and I think it's important, to acknowledge that fraud of any kind is completely unacceptable. Republicans are attacking every Democrat on fraud, from Amy Klobuchar to Keith Ellison to Congresswoman Craig. Just last week, there was a Republican ad that came up that had both of us up next to each other, side by side. I think, Congresswoman Craig is maybe naive if she thinks that this is not an issue that's going to come for her as well.
Just to put a finer point on it, were you part of any discussions when you were discussing how the administration would respond to this emerging crisis?
So the governor has taken the lead here, and the administration has been aggressive internally in working to stop fraud, prevent it from happening in the first place. And I think the measures that have been passed through the legislature, in particular, this independent office of Inspector General, I think is powerful. Keith Ellison, now the Attorney General, has additional resources to be able to go after Medicaid fraud. And Governor Walz has been incredibly aggressive. In fact, turning off funding for a program that criminals have accessed. I also think that, Governor Amy Klobuchar, I like her chances, has an aggressive plan in place as well. And the state government is going to have to continue, everyone who is involved, being 2 steps ahead of folks because these criminals are going to become more and more sophisticated.
Angie Craig.
You gotta stop it. Oh my gosh. You pivot and you talk about Republican fraud. You make the contrast. You don't try to explain what we're doing, the little meticulous things that Minnesota is doing to prevent further fraud. Oh my gosh. I don't know. This is not, you need to just attack your future opponent. And those are the Republicans. And that is tying Trump and the other Republicans and his family to all of the fraud that they're committing every day.
Totally agree.
Oh my gosh. You do not, you don't even.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, well, she's just repeating her attack. She's playing right in. Now Angie Craig is going to probably come back and use some of the same things that Peggy just said. I'm going to keep this going so you can see like the cynicism of Angie Craig here, because as you just explained, the lieutenant governor does nothing. And it doesn't matter what her role is because she doesn't have a role. So she can be in meetings, she can scream her head off and it's meaningless. Of course, everything comes down on the shoulders of the governor. So Angie is about to like lay into Peggy for not accepting responsibility. It's in a ceremonial role. It's like, what responsibility? But part of it is that Flanagan isn't strong enough on this, just redirecting it to like, there is fraud. And let's talk about the billions and billions and billions of dollars of fraud being committed by Republicans and this president. Also this calling Amy Klobuchar the governor already and the sucking up to Amy. Both of these people in this debate do that. They both assume Amy Klobuchar's support in this. And by the way, Amy should just support somebody, for crying out loud. So just why not? Oh my God. Frankly, so should Tim Walz. Just do it. Because his wife, Tim Walz's wife, I want to talk about that endorsement. So hold your thoughts on that.
Okay. All right. So let's listen to a bit of Angie's response here because it's so cynical.
Has there been sufficient accountability inside the Walz administration for fraud lapses?
The lieutenant governor, even as we sit here today, continues to take absolutely no accountability for any of the fraud issues. And she continues to blame the governor. And I'm going to be honest, it's pissing me off. I mean, I'm proud to have the endorsement of Gwen Walz this morning, but it pisses me off that you completely put all of the responsibility on the governor of Minnesota when you were the number 2 elected leader in Minnesota during that period of time. And you know what? Republicans, they're going to have a field day with this with you. And it is my responsibility to warn Democratic primary voters that Republicans are dying to run against you because they believe that you have a unique vulnerability on fraud. And even
we'll keep going.
It pisses me off. That is the strangest comment, I have to say. It pisses me off. She was also elected official during this time. She's a sitting congressperson, and that money is coming from the federal government. So she also has oversight responsibility in how that money is spent. So if she's going to try to blame Peggy Flanagan, she should also blame herself.
Yeah. I'm going to keep this going. I just wanted, because I figured you. I mean, this is such a strange response. I mean, what responsibility could Peggy Flanagan possibly take as the lieutenant governor? She says, she didn't say lieutenant governor, by the way. She said as the second highest elected official in the state. Well, that's technically true, just like J.D. Vance is the second highest elected official in the country. But at the end of the day, does anyone think J.D. Vance has any real ability to affect anything? It's like when Donald Trump just does whatever the hell he wants, ultimately. I mean, it's just the same is true in the relationship between Peggy and Tim Walz. So it's just nonsense. But I wanted to let this go a little longer because we need to see more of Angie Craig in this, because people just don't know this race very well.
As we sit here today, you can't take responsibility. You actually took responsibility on Almanac for the homelessness program in Minnesota. That program itself experienced fraud. So, Lieutenant Governor, I can take accountability for anything I did or should have done differently. But I just, for the life of me, cannot see that you're willing to do the same as a political leader.
So this is simply false. The Congresswoman's accusation around the homelessness program. But I will also say this: I know, what Congressman Craig said just a few weeks ago, that the attacks on Tim Walz and Keith Ellison were political theater. She's now going on to use Republican talking points. And I think that's frankly where Congresswoman Craig is most comfortable as someone who votes with Donald Trump more than any other Minnesota Democrat and has bragged that she votes with Tom Emmer 45% of the time. As a former executive director of a nonprofit organization, the idea that anyone would steal from children, families, the most vulnerable people in our state is abhorrent. And there are measures that this administration has taken. Tim Walz said that he wished more had been done sooner. I think we all feel that way. But I think the approach in the administration in stopping, preventing it from happening in the first place, putting in additional internal controls in the legislation that's passed is important. But in the fall, what we're going to have to do is to take it to Michelle Tafoya. I think it's incredibly important that we talk about why that matters. And it matters because I'm the candidate who is ready. Congresswoman Craig literally votes with Republicans more than any other Minnesota Democrats.
Well, look, Republicans are saying out loud that they would like to run against you. They would not like to run against me. And when you talk about Republicans talking about the fraud issue, they're already running against you on fraud. They're already running against Keith Ellison on fraud.
I wanted to let that Keith Ellison thing get in there before I paused it.
Yeah, well, I don't know why. If you're going to talk about it as a Democrat, like Peggy Flanagan, Minnesota reported some of this fraud to the FBI and took it to a court of law. And the judge said, you can't stop payments. So they were trying to act on the fraud that they discovered without the feds on their own. The agencies did. And I don't know why more people, like the governor, Walz did try to do this at the beginning. It's like, listen, we reported all of this and we were told we can't stop payments by a court of law, by a judge. And so, it's not like they weren't doing anything about it initially, but I don't know. They shouldn't, in this debate with two Democrats, they shouldn't be talking about fraud. They should be talking about what Democrats do, what they want to do to help Minnesotans. And
well, here's where Peggy's argument was really strong here. She said, hey, you're most comfortable using the Republican attacks. That was a great response. Then she should have pivoted to saying, the fraud of the Trump administration, all these. She should have pivoted to that then as well. But she continued talking about
She should have made the contrast. Do you want another Republican or do you want a Democrat, a progressive Democrat?
She kind of did.
She should say that explicitly. Like
she didn't land it.
Elect
Yes.
Angie Craig, you're electing another Republican who's going to vote with Trump. Potentially.
Yeah, she brags about voting with Tom Emmer, the number 3 Republican in the House of Representatives, 45% of the time. Tom Emmer, who has the seat that Michelle Bachmann used to hold in central Minnesota. So, yeah. Ugh.
Now, that's a good contrast to use, and maybe she'll use more of it in the future. We'll see.
So, yeah, they do talk about the health insurers and that kind of stuff. I didn't actually include all that.
I don't think we need the clip because I basically summarized their differences. That's where they differ.
Yep. And I'm not going to include it, but here's Flanagan lands a punch. This is just a couple of seconds, but this is a strong punch. And this is in the middle of that Medicare for all versus the public option thing. And by the way, Amy Klobuchar is on Angie Craig's side on this issue, unfortunately.
And this is another place, I think, a point of difference. Health insurance companies have made considerable donations to Congresswoman Craig. She does not support Medicare for all, and I do.
You've used the phrase
Boom.
Boom.
There's
End.
just-
End
that's
right
ex-
there.
that's exactly right. That's-
Don't do more.
Well, the guy interrupts her anyways, even if she wanted to. But yeah, exactly. So now we're going to slide to almost the end of this thing. And there's just a couple more moments. So this is, okay, this is very short, but they're talking about who supports who. And Angie Craig is going to say who she's getting endorsements from in the state of Minnesota. And it's just 10 seconds long, but this is really clarifying.
For August 11th.
Very briefly.
Yeah, so I would just note to your listeners that I have the support of almost every single elected leader across the state who is running in a competitive race. They
Sorry.
believe that the vulnerabilities on
Sorry about that. That's it. I have the support of everyone in the state nearly who's in a competitive race. So
I will say
centrists.
Peggy Flanagan has the support of a lot of elected officials, a lot.
Yeah, well, she has
In
the
Minnesota,
majority
in
of
Minnesota.
the majority of elected officials in Minnesota are supporting Peggy Flanagan, including the
And-
outgoing senator whose seat they're running to replace, Tina Smith.
Yes, Peggy has a lot. I would say more support of of people.
But
in
what
elected
Angie's saying
positions.
is that the Democrats running scared to the center are the ones supporting me. That's basically what she just said.
Now let's talk about so this is interesting. Governor Walz said he's going to stay out of this race, not going to endorse at all. But what happens yesterday? Gwen, his wife Gwen, who's very politically savvy, like she would have been a great governor. She decides to come out in support of Angie Craig. And apparently there's a photo of their son Gus, who was, became famous when Walz was running as VP. A picture of Gus with Angie Craig. So this comes out. I'm thinking, is this a good thing? I mean, do you want to be endorsed by a Walz? Probably not. His popularity is really, falling in Minnesota. And then in Michigan, you got Gretchen Whitmer, the outgoing governor of Michigan, endorsing Haley Stevens. People go to Gretchen Whitmer's Facebook page and social media. People in Michigan are not happy with Gretchen. Her star fell fast because she's out there supporting data centers.
Yep, very strongly.
Which most people, regardless of your political affiliation, are against. So do you want to be a Haley Stevens endorsed by the governor, Gretchen Whitmer? Probably not in this moment. So I think these are bad decisions by the campaigns of who they're getting endorsed by.
I mean, I feel like the average person in Minnesota is going to hear that Gwen Walz endorsed Angie Craig and just assume that that's a proxy for Tim. What do you think of that?
Yeah, that's probably true. But is that beneficial? No, I don't know if it's beneficial. Especially, there are a lot of progressive Democrats that are not happy with Tim Walz, and this is a primary with Democrats. It's the progressives that are going to turn out and vote. So,
yeah, well, that's
I don't
kind
think
of
that
why
helps Angie Craig.
That's kind of why I was saying just a moment ago that I want, Tim Walz and Amy Klobuchar to endorse, because I think they would endorse Angie. I think that's what they would want. I mean, the scuttlebutt is that Tim Walz's former campaign manager from his time as the congressman from the 1st District, which is southern Minnesota, that guy is now the chair of the state party, and from what I understand, he's an Angie Craig supporter. So I feel like that whole camp probably wants to throw their support behind Angie Craig, but for various reasons. I mean, the chair of the state Democratic Party is kind of locked into knot because the state party endorsed Peggy Flanagan at the convention, so he can't act on what he wants.
Yeah, well, they should. I don't know what those folks who they support, honestly.
Well,
there's a reason to stay neutral if you're a smart politician like Amy Klobuchar, and not, she's also endorsed, and you're supposed to endorse all the Democratic endorsed candidates when you're also an endorsed candidate. But they're
she
thinking
just says
that
I support
Peggy
the
Flanagan
ticket.
could win. They don't know who's going to win the primary. Peggy Flanagan is up in the polls. So why would you go ahead and endorse someone that could lose, like Angie Craig? You wouldn't do
Well,
that.
I mean,
but
and
also, I
ask,
know, but I don't
ask that
think
question of
endorsements
Whitmer.
matter.
Ask that
Yeah,
question
right.
of Whitmer, and,
Right.
and why wade in? I mean, she waded in so late to that.
Oh, yeah. That's when they do it. When they don't really want to endorse, they come in really late because it doesn't have an impact. But I will say, voters aren't usually persuaded by endorsements. They're
No.
like, no one's going to tell me how to vote. I'm going to
No.
vote for who I like.
The most important endorsements happened ages ago with Bernie Sanders. That was the most important endorsement in this race, frankly. And he came out very early and energized volunteers and energized the left for
Yeah,
Peggy
has
Flanagan.
AOC endorsed in either of these races, Michigan or Minnesota?
Oh, for sure in Michigan, yeah.
Okay,
AOC
but not in this race though.
No.
Interesting.
AOC worked like she was in Michigan campaigning for Abdul El-Sayed, along with Bernie
she's probably
Sanders.
because she is thinking about running for president. She
Yes.
seriously is, and so
Yeah.
she's going to be. She might not want to because if it's close in Minnesota, she doesn't want to lose half the state by coming in.
Well, maybe yes, maybe no. I mean, Minnesota was solidly a Bernie state in 2016 and 2020, and I don't think that's as much an issue.
Well,
I think
she could have a relationship with Angie Craig since they both are in the U.S. House. That could be the other reason.
I mean, Peggy Flanagan is just not as vocally on the left as a lot of these other candidates, and the fact that she did court AIPAC is probably a concern for someone like AOC as far as her the level of her endorsement. I mean, it's not as much of a concern for Bernie Sanders. I mean, he's strictly focused on the economics. I mean, and he's had to take a journey on the Israel issue over the years. He wasn't always as good as he is now on that issue, but well, it's just true of a lot of Democrats. But just a couple more things, Jen. This is on the forest fires because it got talked about in the Michigan debate. It's talked about here, and almost the exact same comments that Abdul El-Sayed makes. Fortunately, Peggy Flanagan makes here about the forest fires.
I would say, we know that climate change is real. We are seeing it in real time here. I'm grateful to the National Guard and to the first responders who've been in the boundary waters trying to get these fires under control. This is a place where we need to be incredibly aggressive. We have moved backwards under the Trump administration, we need to focus on a clean energy economy. People are ready for that. And I think that, one of the reasons that we're in this position has been the fossil fuel industry. This is another place, Chevron has contributed to Congresswoman Craig. She voted 11 times to drill on public lands. We've got clear difference in our positions here. And I believe we should fight climate change, not take funds from the people.
We're going to get to closing.
Why did this guy interrupt? Okay.
I don't know.
God. Sorry.
Maybe he gets money from Chevron. Who knows?
Brian Baxt is protecting the fossil fuel industry.
Well,
oh my
protecting NPR. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? I mean, they did get a significant loss of funding from the federal government. That's true. But that's a strong attack. That's a strong attack. But the thing is, it's just a one-off attack because she hasn't done that build the narrative over the course of this debate like El-Sayed did. And that's the main difference. It's okay if you deliver differently. I mean, she's always going to deliver her message in this kind of like soft Minnesota nice way. I have to come to accept that, even though I don't love it, but I get it. But the point is she doesn't have this consistent narrative building, which she could have in this debate, but she doesn't use it. She just brings them up as separate instances. Oh, my candidate supported by the fossil fuel industry. Oh, my candidate supported by AIPAC. Oh, my candidate supported by Kelsey. These are all true, but you should connect them all and keep saying all three of those things. She's supported by Kelsey, AIPAC, and the fossil fuel people. And then that creates that overarching narrative that everyone's going to remember and that anyone can clip. I have to clip 27 different places in this thing.
Do they have another debate scheduled? This might be the last debate.
I have no idea.
Okay.
None. I wish I knew.
They had agreed to a couple, and this might be it.
So they were both NPR debates?
One was on public television, and then this one.
Oh, well, more or less the same thing. All right.
I wouldn't call these debates. I would just say they're answering questions side by side.
Yeah, unfortunately. So here's Peggy's closing, and again, because she hasn't created this narrative, it doesn't land as much. I mean, she does make the attack. It does happen, but it just doesn't land as well because it hasn't been a consistent narrative. But let's check it out. It's a good closing remarks.
I'm so grateful for this conversation. I've heard from you all across the state of Minnesota that you're sick and tired of nibbling around the edges and you are ready for big, bold change. Part of the reason that we're here is because too many Democrats have been weak. Congresswoman Craig has a track record of voting with Donald Trump more than any other Minnesota Democrat, and until she decided to run for the U.S. Senate, bragged on her website that she voted with Tom Emmer 45% of the time. She voted for Donald Trump's immigration bill that unleashed ICE onto our communities and continues to try to, change her record. You know who got Kristi Noem fired? The people of Minnesota. You did that. And here's what I know. I will never bend to Donald Trump. I will always stand with Minnesotans. And with the corporate PAC money that is coming into this race, the dark money, over $17 million so far, you have to ask yourself, who does Congresswoman Craig stand with? I stand with the people of Minnesota. I will be beholden only to you. I've delivered on minimum wage, paid family and medical leave, feeding kids breakfast and lunch in school, and will continue to fight for a country, for a state where everyone has an opportunity so that Minnesotans can afford the lives they want to live.
Okay, if my mom was listening to this, she would have, and she said $17 million are coming into this race. She didn't make that clear that that's connected to Angie. That's coming from AIPAC. She just said $17 million is coming into this race. So
that's a good point. I didn't even catch
clear.
that. That's a good point.
We know because we've been following it, but people from the outside will have no clue. You have to be very specific.
You're right. And because, again, broken record here, Jen, but that's the point of politics, is you need to be a broken record. And the broken record point to make is because she didn't build that narrative over the course of this campaign, you're right, it's non-specific. Whereas if she had been saying that over and over and over again, then her misstepping here and not tying that $17 million to Angie Craig and to these corporate interests clearly wouldn't be an issue. But because that narrative, I can tell
she's very cautious. They're both a little bit cautious. Peggy Flanagan's speech at the state convention was amazing. It was full of energy, definitive, to the point. She was talking to her base. She got unanimous support from the floor for the endorsement. I mean, it was incredible. And you can hopefully find clips or the whole speech. And I would encourage people to go listen to that speech. She's very
I have the
dynamic.
whole thing on my phone. I don't know. The audio is not very good, but
well, you should see if people can. You should find a YouTube clip and put it in our show notes.
She did an excellent job in that speech, and it was clear. And there are no now, of course, she had teleprompters and all that kind of stuff. But here's my thinking. If she weren't trying to be careful and pull her punches, she wouldn't have all these ums and ahs. She'd be very clear and direct. Because we've seen it. She can do it. She can do this without all this fiddling around with qualifying language and, here's where I think we might have a little bit of a disagreement. By the way, I'm making fun of the accent because I have it myself, so it's okay. But the point is just cut the crap and play politics. I mean, people's lives are hanging in the balance. Genuinely, I think it makes a massive difference to the well-being of many, 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 many people who wins this primary race. It's genuinely life or death for some people, especially people in Gaza. So nobody can afford this kind of Minnesota nice crap.
I mean, I think Senator Tina Smith has a lot of respect statewide. And I think her decision, usually when you're outgoing, your seat is the one that's open, you do not endorse. She made the decision fairly early to endorse Peggy Flanagan. Right there, that says a lot about who she wants to replace her and the legacy of that seat. This is the Paul Wellstone seat for people that remember Paul Wellstone. Very progressive senator.
And Al Franken, who was an excellent senator. Yeah.
So this is the seat. This is important. This is our progressive U.S. Senate seat. And it's going to be a close race, but I think based on polling, it looks like Peggy Flanagan's going to win.
It looks, yeah.
Against all the money pouring in for Angie Craig.
But it's still, I mean, you don't know what effect the money's going to have. So when you have your opportunities to land a punch, you gotta land it. And I just think this cautious, being overly nice, unless she thinks she's in the pole position and that being nice is the priority, maybe she thinks that. I don't think that necessarily, but I don't see internal polling. I don't know what she knows. But if it's too important, this race is too important, Jen.
I think you see polling where Angie was overly strong, like going on the offense and really attacking Peggy, and that backfired. And I think Peggy knows that backfired. So she doesn't want to make that same mistake in this race. So you're right. She probably has a lot more internal polling and information than we have on why she is not attack, like
Right.
Abdul al-Sayed.
But still, I mean, I still think building the narrative and having that structure throughout the whole debate, that's not attack. That's just having a clear thing you can always keep.
Peggy Flanagan was
to.
much more on the attack on public television.
Okay.
On Almanac.
So that was about a month ago.
Yeah. So people should go watch them speak there. I think Peggy had a lot of strong statements against.
I hate to admit it, Jen, but I missed that one. I'll watch it at 3x speed.
Okay, this has got to be a wrap. I got to go cook dinner.
Oh yeah,
for a very hungry teenager.
Well, there's so many things to cover as usual, and we will get to it, but we have some interviews this week we're excited about, so maybe a little less news, a little bit more interviewing, but all part of the game. But for now, on behalf of Jen Schultz, I'm Sam Martin, and this has been Our Dissent.